Today on Doomed! Here it is, the big 200th episode of Doomed with Matt Binder, and I am your host, of course, Matt Binder. It's hard to believe that it's been over about 4 years now. I've been doing this show. 4 years of Doomed. Talking about the latest right-wing conspiracy theories, misinformation, movements, whether it be, your everyday average Republican, QAnon, white supremacist groups. Literally, it's all the same now. And joining me on this 200th episode of the show, let me pull us up on the screen. The man who, quite frankly, can be blamed for all of this. The one who the one who brought me into the podcasting, live streaming world. Oh boy, 11 years ago now.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Sam Seder of the Majority Report. Welcome to the show, Sam.
Thanks for having me, Matt. I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Oh, no, there it goes. Congratulations, 200 episodes. Holy crap. And I am very, very sorry that I in any way contributed to your what your life is now. I apologize.
It's all good. It's all right. I forgive you. Anyway, I originally actually wanted to have you on for the 100th episode of the show. And then literally the 100th episode just happened to fall in I believe it was either the second or third week of when everything shut down in March 2020.
Oh, wow.
And I was not really in a celebratory mood. I think that episode ended up being something about the coronavirus, obviously. And it's good that now, I was I'll have Sam back. I'll have Sam finally on the show when things are better. It's good now, 2 years later.
Better-ish.
Well, we've eradicated it, obviously, in this country, and now you're on the show. That's
excellent. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the word is that Hochul is going to get rid of the mask mandates. Right. I don't know how that's going to impact schools in New York City, but there's a sense that I think a lot of it's aspirational. Maybe if we sort of behave like it's over, it'll go away. But certainly the infections are going down. So we're pretty close. It's as good as it's. I think we're about to enter a period that's going to be as good as it's been in 2 years. We'll see how sustainable that is.
Right. How's your family been during all this? I mean, we actually ended up we went 2 years almost without getting sick. And then the end of 2021, we all got it. Me, my partner, the two kids. Luckily, we all were okay. But it was, it took a lot out of us. It was, it's the kids actually were lucky. We all got lucky in terms of just maybe a day or two of fever, but I got the worst of it actually. My back was really bad for weeks. And I actually the first day it went out, I couldn't move. And,
wow.
I was talking to Matt Leck, and he said he was experiencing the same thing right after he got COVID.
Yeah, no, fortunately, no one in my family got it. My kids, myself, my ex-wife. I was lucky. Both my parents would be very susceptible, but they got very lucky as well. Knock on wood. Hope to maintain that. It's. I think everybody is going through some level of low-grade stress and strain. But my kids seem to be doing more or less okay. It's tricky navigating this when you're divorced and sharing custody. It adds another layer of complication to things. But it's not dramatically different, I think, than probably everybody's going through some measure of that difficulty, throughout this time. So knock on wood. We're doing as well as, I feel like I could hope. So, right. But it's been a tough time, and hopefully. But Saul said to me the other day, and obviously your kids similar dynamic. I mean, well, very different. I mean, but Saul says to me, he said, he turned to me and he goes, 1/4 of my life has been in this pandemic. And he goes, and that doesn't even include when I was like 1, because I don't remember when I was 1. And I was like, yeah, you're right.
That's very astute, actually, for him to recognize that. I mean, that's my son has not said that, and he might be Saul's age. My son's almost 7, close. I
Yeah,
think.
well, Sal's almost 9.
Oh, okay.
So
All right,
I
a
mean,
big
it's
difference.
that actually between 7 and 8 is a big developmental year. And then of course it was also even numbers, so it was easier to say quarter.
Right.
Not taking anything away from him, but he's good. He's good at math.
My daughter was born in the spring of 2019, so she pretty much her entire life has been this. She didn't get to really interact with many kids.
Yeah.
She wants to, like, she sees us wearing the mask and she requests one, even though she doesn't need one because she's under the age where they usually require one. But that's the thing. Let me talk to you about that really quick. I didn't think about we talk about COVID, but I want to ask really quick because it dovetails into like the right and everything. You hear so many of these like anti-vaxxers and right-wingers basically push the idea that, like, what are we doing to our kids with these masks? Let me ask you, Sam, as a parent of 2 kids, do they give a shit about wearing these masks?
I mean, I can only speak for my kids, but no, they don't. I mean, I think Mila doesn't. I think she's she doesn't love it, but she's as vigilant, if not more so, than her parents. And Saul is like, I said to him, I mean, he's nervous about COVID, but it's not, an irrational, a fear. And he'll go and he'll play with his friends, and he'll, we don't go many places, but we will go places, and there are some, depending on who it is we see, he will take off the mask in their house, but generally he will wear his mask. And I mean, I remember one time we were going, I think it was for the Yom Kippur break fast, not even this year, I think it was the year before. And we were doing it on somebody's roof. Maybe it was this year, last September. And I'm like, are you, yeah. And I said, we were doing it on their roof, or on their, maybe not their roof, but a roof. And so it was outside. And I was like, are you excited to go? And he goes, well, if you hadn't noticed, I'm unvaccinated. And I was like, well, yeah, you'll be fine though, and wear a mask. And we went, and he was fine. But in terms of wearing a mask, no, he wears a KN95 that's kid size, and he's pretty vigilant about it. And he's complained. There are times that we've been in the car where I'm like, dude, you can take your mask off, and he's like, actually, I like it because it keeps my face warm. And that's the one thing actually about outdoors that I've noticed too, is that I walk to work and I'm like, I could just do this. And it actually, when you start getting into like the teens and the 20s, wearing a mask is not a bad thing, actually.
Right. I might do it every winter, honestly. I've noticed the same thing. It's better than a scarf even.
Yep, it really is. It's pretty good, and you can just drop it and this and that. And so, I mean, I try and wear mine as little as I can, but I don't go into places without wearing a mask, and I don't really fret too much about other people wearing it. If I'm going in with the KN95 and I'm going into the supermarket or the drugstore or something like that, I'm not in any given place that I have to worry about it. I think the mask picks me, has me covered.
Right. Yeah. I could also say as a parent that my son thinks absolutely nothing of it. He just literally wears it. He's got like we bought him like this like lanyard thing that goes on the mask, so he could just literally drop it off his face. Doesn't even need it on his ears, and it's like a necklace. So he has it on, and when he goes outside, he takes it off. And like I said earlier, my daughter, 2 years old, we're all going out and we all got our masks on like we normally do. She wants hers on. Like, she wants to be part of the whole thing. She doesn't even care. Yeah. It's just
And I
ridiculous.
get, I mean, I guess it's sort of like, you can look at it like on some level it's sad, but on another level, like, you could have said the same thing about shirts. Like,
Right.
look at this.
Right.
The kids feel like they're going out, now we all wear shirts. And it used to be we would walk around without shirts. And now all the kids feel like they have to cover up just like the parents do. That's a shame. I mean, it's just an inconvenience. It's an annoyance, but it actually makes a significant difference in terms of, like, I think, keeping you safe. Um, so it is what it is. One thing I did notice, I coached my son's assistant coach, I should say, my son's little league or minor league team last year, and I play softball, and I'm used to, like, getting frustrated when people blow it. But when you're playing with, like, 7-year-olds, particularly 7-year-olds who missed a year, they're not very good. They're not very good. And in the first couple of games, I felt myself getting frustrated, and I was mumbling under my breath, like, Jesus, are you serious? And, you forget they're little kids. So, but the good news is, like, I have my mask on for the league because the league required it. And I realized, like, oh, nobody knows I said anything. And, so we don't have, like, parents on the side going, like, what's wrong with that coach muttering how bad the kids are or something. But so it took me a little while to adjust that. But, there are times where it's, an upshot, I guess.
Right. Right. Yeah, I just think the whole backlash against it is amazing. Like, because it's even not so much even just the like, we're angry that there's like that businesses are able to make their own, like, decide they don't want someone in there following their own policies. Like, it's even beyond that, where it's like they even get mad if you, like, choose to wear a mask. It's like,
Yeah.
so bizarre. Like, what happened to, if the whole idea is let everyone have their own personal choice? What's up?
I think it is. I mean, it's not hard for me to sort of, at the very least, sort of get around what the idea is, which is, like, they want to not feel any type of nagging doubt about what they're doing. And, having heard me pontificate about Rush Limbaugh for so many years, that was what one of Limbaugh's, like, and anybody who's watched the Majority Report has probably heard me say this 1,000 times, but Limbaugh, one of, like, his big projects were always basically saying, feel no doubt. Don't ever doubt yourself. Don't ever question yourself. Block that stuff out. And when somebody else is wearing a mask or doing something, like, publicly, signifying that they're taking this seriously, or they're actually, or there's it's both a symbol, like, I mean, because I see somebody with a mask in a context, like, I'm like, okay, I feel confident that that person takes this seriously. I don't know what their behavior is outside of this one moment we're interacting. I get this, that this person takes it seriously. So I have a vague notion, it's it is literally virtue signaling to me. It is signaling that I take this seriously, and you can have at least some confidence that I'm not, walking around maskless in, in a concert hall, with strangers and stuff like this. And so, but the opposite of that is that other people are saying, like, I take this seriously. And it creates just a slight creeping doubt in these people's minds, which they resent and they hate. And it is and that is almost like definitionally what it is to have a conservative reactionary mind, which is like, I can't have any doubt that I am in the right in this situation. Like, I have seen people get upset at other people saying, like, the rule is you're supposed to wear a mask in here. And, but in situations where a mask is voluntary, I just don't, I've never seen anybody go, like, how dare you, like, the supposed mask scolding happens, as far as I can tell, on people who are not wearing masks and resent. And look, I spend a decent amount of my time, and certainly during COVID, upstate, and it's a rural area. And I spend a decent amount of time at like hardware stores and folks who grew up in rural areas. And there's a lot of people who are just like, I'm not wearing a mask. And I have only seen people who are not wearing masks take issue with people who are wearing masks and not vice versa. Now that's just my experience, but because to some extent it's like, look, both of us are in a room. Whatever the odds are that one of us have COVID are, if we're both wearing masks, the one without COVID is more protected than if that person alone is wearing a mask. But if that person's just wearing a mask, the person without COVID is wearing a mask, and it's a high quality mask, you can be in that same space for an extended period of time.
Right. Hour,
2 hours, depending on, what kind of viral load the other person has, and still be pretty safe. And so, it's taken a while for the data to make that clear, but that's basically the situation. Now that's not 100%, but that's, odds are that's the case. And so, it is what it is. You don't want to wear a mask. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to invite you in my house,
right?
But, suit yourself.
Right. So let's move on to the next topic. I wanted to talk. I mean, you probably have. I've seen you on TV talk about it. You might be sick and tired of talking about it, but I do want to talk with you about Joe Rogan, because I have a very different little discussion I want to bring up. Because to me, yes, it's a problem when the biggest podcast on the planet is spreading this sort of misinformation out there about COVID. But, Ben Shapiro's podcast is pretty big. All the other right-wingers' podcasts are pretty big. They all dabble in the same sort of COVID conspiracy theories or questioning the science. But for me, the issue here, and I brought this up on Twitter, and of course the only people who had a problem with it were right-wingers, is that Rogan and his audience are under the impression that the show, at least when they talk about politics, I'm not going to talk about when Rogan talks with entertainers or other comedians or whatever. When they talk about politics, he is a right-wing talk show. There is no, they're under the impression that they're getting some sort of moderate, centrist opinion, and they believe it for some reason with Rogan, whereas obviously the other shows clearly label themselves and categorize themselves in a specific category. There was some list going around that listed a bunch of Rogan's guests and who was on the right and who's on the left. And it wasn't a very, full list. It was only a couple of, I think 100 episodes the guy looked at. And the left-wing list wasn't filled up with everyone he's had, like Bernie Sanders or whatever. But the right-wing list was clearly... it looked like it was quite clear that he's had mostly right-wingers on his show. And they had a problem, the Rogan fans, with people like Jordan Peterson and Barry Weiss and Tim Pool being labeled as right-wingers. They were saying, right. No. Those are Rogan's leftist guests. You got to put them on the left column. They're on the, and there's no other show on the planet that talks about right-wing politics that I can think of that would say like, oh, no, Ben Shapiro's guest, he wasn't talking like Matt Walsh isn't a right-winger who was talking to Ben Shapiro. It's so bizarre, that dynamic that happens with Rogan and his fans.
Well, Dave Rubin was doing that for a while, but Dave Rubin was doing it consciously. Like, I mean, I look, hopefully, most people know, my perspective on Rogan, but it is, I do not think that Rogan thinks about these things. Okay. Like Ben Shapiro does.
Right.
Steven Crowder does.
Yeah.
I think even Dave Rubin, to the extent that he has the faculty to think about these things, I don't think he thinks about it in a very sophisticated way, but he certainly knows what he's doing, at least, to a certain extent. My take on Rogan is that he doesn't really have a clue about this. I mean, I think I agree with you that is very problematic for anybody from the center to the left, that Tim Pool, that those ilk of people can go on there and be perceived as representing the left, because of course they're saying more or less the same thing as the people on the right are. It's just that it creates this sense of like, well, the center must be somewhere between Tim Pool and, Steven Crowder or something. And yeah, I do think that's a problem from the perspective of the left. I don't know that it's, that Rogan is conscious of that. Let me put it this way. I don't think Joe Rogan has a political project. I think Joe Rogan is in over his head. There was a great tweet thread. I can't even remember who did it, but I read it off on the Majority Report that really just outlined. And I know this. I mean, I've known Rogan for 30 years, I guess, actually, now that I think about it. He was in the same Boston comedy, at the same time I was. We weren't particularly friends. We played softball, pickup softball, and I would see him perform quite a bit. And, he was of a different sort of school of comedy than I was. And he was very sort of like a Boston, his comedy, I think it's pretty obvious, right. Somewhat reactionary, not terribly necessarily thoughtful.
He's better on the mic as a podcaster than a comedian.
I mean, his comedy was, this was like at the end of the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s, like, you could go in with a lot of attitude. And if you were big and brassy and, projected a lot of confidence, that type of comedy was still working at that time. And I don't think he really, he just started his podcast getting high with his, friends who were similarly, dispositioned as he was, which is sort of like a Boston, I don't know. I mean, I want to say townie, but I mean, I know that at times I, was considered a townie when I grew up in Worcester, but the idea just being like, a little bit ignorant about these things and just sort of knee jerk. And I don't think he's terribly thoughtful. And I think that, like, the worst part about that compilation, like, I'm very sympathetic actually to the idea that, particularly at the time that he was doing it, that you are quoting comedians. I mean, Lenny Bruce had an extended routine about the N-word, where his whole idea was the way that you reappropriate or disempower the N-word is if, I think it was like, I don't know, I think specifically, if I remember the bit correctly, it was like, Kennedy comes out and says, I want you to meet my my new Secretary of State. He's a N-word. And, this guy, cabinet secretary, was an N-word, and this, and just N-word as a way of, like, sort of disempower the word. We have a different understanding of the way, and really, frankly, a better understanding of history that informed that word today. And, but I'm sympathetic with him having used that word in the way that he did, and the fact that he's apologized for it, because I think that's all you can do in that situation. I'm less sympathetic about his story about going to see Planet of the Apes, frankly.
Right.
Like, that seems to me to be
pretty racist.
That's not a semantic issue or an issue about disempowering language or quoting somebody. That's just like your ignorance coming out and associating black people with the Planet of the Apes, or with Africa for that matter. And I think that's a little problematic, and I think that's indicative of maybe, like, whatever his life experience, his upbringing, who's to say what's in somebody's heart. But I don't think he has a project. And I think he got surrounded by a bunch of people. And at one point, Michael and I tried to get on Rogan's show. Maybe it was, I can't remember. Maybe, actually, no, I do. I could probably figure this out. It was sometime around, I think, 2018. I wanted to go out to LA on a regular basis. I was involved with someone out there at the time, and I was looking for some reasons to do a business trip, to be honest, if I'm going to be totally frank. And so, I emailed him and I had gotten connected to him through, mutual friend. And he, I think at one point, like he sort of semi-punted. And then that was the end of it. And it wasn't like he wasn't aware of me. I mean, I came up in discussions he had with, I think it was Brett Weinstein or one of those Weinstein guys and maybe somebody else as they were talking about me going after Ruben. And I think at one point he was basically just, for whatever reason, didn't want to have me on there. But I don't think he has a project. I think he just was getting good feedback from the right. And I think he's more inclined to be dispositioned towards them, see certain people as being a little soy boyish and that type of thing. And I think he's in over his head. And I think, he went from smoking pot with his buddies to smoking pot with MMA guys to smoking pot with celebrities to then all of a sudden, getting a little Freddie Prinze syndrome and feeling like he couldn't hear the laughter anymore and needed to get into sort of deeper thoughts. And you know what? I'm sorry. Dude, if you're going to do that, you got to look at how many people are listening to your show and realize that you have a responsibility. You have a responsibility to society. You have a responsibility to your audience. And if you're not willing to do the reading, if you're just going to say to your producer, Google this, Google that, tell me the top headline, then you're a fuck up. And you deserve the criticism. And if you are a company that's going to pay for somebody to do this on your platform exclusively, then you as a company need to take responsibility for that as well. And so, there's two different sort of categories here. There's the category of a company that is profiting off of creating disinformation and putting it out there and being this irresponsible with this platform deserves a tremendous amount of criticism and should be hammered. And if people want to walk away from them and not pay them money to do this, then they have every right to do that. And that's not censorship.
Right.
That's called I don't want to put money in the pocket of somebody who is doing destructive things to society.
Right.
And then the other sort of category is as, people who are trying to promote a specific ideology or range of ideology in our society, specifically, centered to the left. We look at Rogan and say, okay, this is a problem because this is another source of right-wing talking points that he may or may not know that he is. He's definitely no Crowder. Crowder knows exactly what he's doing.
Right.
And is out there with a project. Rogan is not. And so, there's different answers as to how you approach him. Or approach that problem. And that's a different one as well on some level. And again, there's no censorship here.
Right.
Joe Rogan could get kicked off of Spotify, could get kicked off of YouTube, could get kicked off of iTunes, and he could set up his own website and get more distribution than either one of us combined will get over the rest of our lives.
Right. That's
not censorship. That is, consumer reaction. And, I don't think that's the most effective means of change necessarily, but nobody who supports Joe Rogan and many, many people who don't support Joe Rogan have any leg to stand on when they talk about consumers not spending their dollars somewhere and other people complaining about it. It's just absurd. Right. It's an absurd concept. And, if you see somebody defending on those grounds that this is censorship, they're full of shit.
Right.
That they actually are the ones who do have a much more thought out and deliberate political project.
Right. It's a good old fashioned boycott when people start canceling, and this is the same thing the right does all the time when a company angers them by like running a commercial with like a gay couple or something. Like they literally
it's been going on for decades.
Yeah, right.
Decades.
Right.
They pioneered this.
Right.
The Christian right pioneered this. They were protesting Disney over, or Pixar or whoever it was with, Lenny the shark or whatever that was, a shark's tail or whatever it was. They were saying that the dolphin, I mean, I remember calling them in 2005, some of these right-wing organizations. They were saying that, Lenny the shark or somebody was like cross-dressing and it was teaching kids to be gender neutral or whatever it was that they had sort of divined was going on in these things. I mean, this has been going on for decades on the right, decades.
Right. And, I mean, if people want to cancel their Spotify subscription, let them. I just want to say too, like, is that like, this is another thing I witnessed. I actually didn't say anything about the actual boycott or the censorship claims about Rogan. My tweets about Rogan were simply, well, A, I laughed at the fact that he was literally apologizing every other day at this point. And then B, the idea that he has this well-balanced show of both left-wing ideas and right-wing ideas. And that's all I mentioned. And then just the stream of right-wingers come into my Twitter. Oh, you're trying to boycott him and censor him? I have a Spotify subscription. I haven't even canceled it because, in my personal opinion, I don't think it's not going to do anything, in my personal opinion. But if people feel like their $10 canceling it does something, then power to them. And if Joe Rogan continues to stay with Spotify, it is what it is. I'll continue to criticize what he says and does, and the amount of airtime he gets and amount of listeners he has. If he does get removed from Spotify, I won't care about that either, and I'll continue to criticize whatever platform he goes to or his own, whether he sets up his own server and continues to say whatever it is that he says.
Yeah, I mean, it's called critique, and the idea that somehow that is censorship. When I went on Chris Hayes' program and I was accused of saying to censor him, and it's like, wait, what? Like, I don't think, frankly, that the presidential spokesperson should be weighing in on it. I think it would have been better for her to say, like, this is not our business. We wish that in general, that if people have a large platform or even a small platform, but it's obviously more impactful if they have a large platform, that they do a minimum amount of homework before they decide that they are in a position to espouse these things. But listen, I do the same thing with Nate Silver with his bullshit, or David Leonhardt in the Times. Like, it's just nobody pays attention to it in the same way because they don't have a natural constituency. But the right has adopted Rogan in many respects, and that the whole IDW thing, it just so happened that they were kindred spirits in that regard. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of like bullshit around that, and I think like you can find different. Somebody could do a taxonomy of the type of people who are going to defend Rogan in this instance, ranging from like disingenuous, from like just a fan of Rogan. I think he's a good guy, and he seems like a nice guy and a guy I'd like to hang with and get high with or whatever, through to like people talking about authoritarianism or censorship or some bullshit like that, and just how disingenuous they could be.
Right. I have a quick story you'll enjoy. So in those replies to my tweet about Rogan not having on that many left wingers on his show, someone said, "What are you talking about? I've heard episodes with him talking to Abby Martin and Sam Seder," and I retweeted that. And a bunch of my followers replied like, "Oh, can you link me up to that Sam Seder episode? I can't wait to listen." And they ended up replying to everybody after getting called out and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I meant David Pakman."
Oh, well, I mean, that was Pakman's plan all along when he stole my backdrop.
Right.
Yeah, the classic. Right. No, that was, talk about somebody who's planning something out. That was whole part of Pakman's the whole game plan.
Right. No, I do have, I agree that Rogan is, and this is the last point I really want to make about this, but I agree with you that Rogan's not like plotting this or planning this or thoughtful about this in the same way that, other right-wing shows are. He's just someone who's fallen into this and is digging himself deeper and deeper over the years. But I don't understand why, especially being that he did specifically bring you up and Michael Brooks up on the show once before. I think he called him Michael Roberts, and then went online, tweeted at him to apologize. So he definitely knew who Michael Brooks was. And to that tweet, like Kyle Kulinski, who's been on Rogan's show before, I believe it was Kyle Kulinski, tweeted at Rogan and said, you got to have Michael on. He's great, and he'll really speak to your fans. And Michael, as I know, I don't know what he would think of Rogan nowadays, but Michael at the time was a fan of Rogan. I don't quite understand, why he's so against having someone like you or Michael at the time on the show. If it wasn't for him just... Who is he? Is he afraid of offending his friends? Is he like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. If this is a guy, like, it's not like you guys aren't big enough either. Like, if you look at some of his guests, like, sure, you're not like as big as, I don't know, whatever celebrities he has on, or the biggest right winger talking heads. But
well, this was like 3 or 4 years ago,
right,
too, where obviously it's a different. I mean, I don't know why he didn't have Michael on. I think in terms of why he didn't have me on was because those guys from the IDW, like Sam Harris and Rubin at the time, and Weinstein and that crew said don't have him on. I mean, I don't have proof of that. I wasn't sitting there, but I mean. You can listen to the conversations where I came up. I think it was a couple of different ones, and it was all around that. I think he brought me up to Pacman. I think it was Pacman, where he said something about, and it was all stuff that he was parroting from those IDW guys. And I think it was a combination of feeling like they said, don't have him on. You're just going to give him oxygen or whatnot, which is, probably true. Right. They would have given me, oxygen, and it would have helped my show, I would imagine, on some level. I don't think there's a huge audience for me there, but I think it would have undercut some of the stuff that he had been hearing before. And I think also, look, I'm not the first person to say this, but I can be a bit of a dick. And I don't really, I think that I don't do a great job of hiding that. And I think as well as anybody that I don't feel comfortable doing things that are exclusively to help my show or to promote myself. And that is, I think, threatening to some people because, I was fairly satisfied, like when he's, was having Kyle on and was having Pacman on and then Bernie, like, okay, there's some left voices that are getting to that audience. And I also have no reason to go out to LA anymore because that situation ended. And I was fine with that. But it's my way of saying that, like, I wouldn't have had a problem going on the show and offending him and never coming back on it. Let's put it that way.
Right.
And, I'm not very good at people who have watched the Majority Report for a long time can see that this is a show that, like, I don't have people on because they have a big platform and with the hopes of getting invited onto those shows. I just don't feel comfortable doing it that way. And so I think to a certain extent that comes through a little bit. And I think, maybe he was afraid of having Michael on or for a similar reason, maybe he imparted that, Michael would behave in that way as well. I have no doubt that Sam Harris was not appreciative of Michael's work. and other members of the IDW were not appreciative of his work. And, I think, frankly, even, I mean, would I have liked to have gone on? Sure. I think I would have had fun. But I think in terms of like depriving his audience, he probably deprived his audience more by not having Michael on, certainly, than he did me. I mean, that's my opinion. I think Michael would have been a little bit more of an interesting guest for his audience
for that
than I might
too.
be.
Yeah.
I might be a little bit more less diplomatic.
Right. I've mentioned this when I'm on. I've mentioned this a few times on the Thursday show. Whenever it comes up, when I'm on Majority Port on Thursdays for the fun half at 1 p.m. I don't know if you've heard it or if you've discussed this with anybody else or if you realize this, but I want to bring it up after the wonderful "Oh no, Sam Seder, what a fucking nightmare" moment where Steven Crowder ran away from you when you were tagged into that debate with Ethan Klein from H3H3. Tim Pool had a complete meltdown over it to the point where it was really bizarre. Did you see these clips of like Tim Pool having a meltdown over you doing that? Like he had a complete mental breakdown. Like the videos out there, like
really,
he was angrier than Steven Crowder. Like he was there's this
at me.
There's this clip of him yelling, "You've ruined it, Sam! You've ruined it!" And I don't even know what he's talking about, honestly.
I ruined it.
Yeah, I don't know what he's even talking about. But he's so upset at the moment that you do that. And in his anger, he says that you want to know why you don't get invited to other shows. I know of shows where you're blacklisted. And
I did hear that part. Maybe not necessarily from him, but like I do remember somebody saying I was blacklisted. It didn't come as a complete shock to me.
Right.
All that crew of people, I think, really understood that they needed to ignore my existence, that it would be better for them to do that. It's like it's a circle jerk in many respects. And they know, and in fact, Rogan talked about this with Brett Weinstein, that I can't remember exactly the words he used, but he said, Seder's trying to pick off Rubin like he's a wounded antelope. And I was like, that's right. I am. I'm trying to take the straggling antelope and I'll take that one. And then I'll take the next one if I can. And, it's not like this isn't what keeps me up at night, but it is something I, spend some time thinking about if I see an opportunity. I mean, I really wanted Rubin. I set out and I think, you were, I think you were still on the show. Like when Rubin, Rubin at one point announced he had a book coming out, and there was it ended up being a couple years later. But I was like, I remember saying in the office, when anybody goes to invite him on their show or review that book or do the fucking feature that we know that whatever it is, they're going to do, like they did with Glenn Beck and, the left wing or liberal press, both actually, in many respects, love to write about right wingers. And when they go to do this, I want my fucking tweets or my videos or whatever defining Dave Rubin to come up without them having to go past the first page. I mean, I think that was like, I was like, I want to be in that top 5 when you search for Dave Rubin, because I want people to understand that this guy is full of shit. Because at that time he was pretending like he was of the left. He was saying stuff like, I'm for single payer healthcare, but a smaller government, that type of stuff. And so we set out to do that. And so when he, finally signed with Beck and this and that project was over in many respects, because he had given up, pretending he could only sustain that for so long that he was, the left had left him or whatever it was his catchphrase. I have no doubt that those guys, I mean, a blacklist seems like a strong word, but look, I was blacklisted from Fox for years. I would get booked by a show, and that was like more and more marginal of the shows. And then when they would go, because I know how they do this, because I'm quite convinced they had a blacklisted MSNBC too. I don't know who was on it, but they would go to central casting, and what would happen is, and I'm pretty sure it came from Hannity, there was a word in there like, oh no, this sets off a red flag. Can't have this guy on the network. And so the idea that, the IDW guys, Shapiro and Rubin and Sam Harris and Brett Weinstein and the other Weinstein brother had all said like, oh, we agreed that Sam Seder's not going to come on the show. Like, that was not in any way a surprise to me.
Right.
I didn't realize though that he threw such a fit. And the ruined it thing, that makes total sense with what I know about Tim Pool, which is I know somebody who had worked with him before, had visited him at one point when his house was in like New Jersey. This was before he got the big compound and wherever he is, I guess somewhere near Washington, D.C. now. And they were taking him through, and he literally said, like, yeah, no, this is what I'm doing. It's great because I don't even have to read anything. And he was just, Tim Pool is about making money. And I'm sure his inclination is, vaguely around these people are jerks. But I think for him, it's just like, I don't, many of those people on the right don't feel any compulsion to actually do any work about the topic they're doing. I mean, you remember that's what the Ken and Ken show was all about.
Right.
We were just like, how do we take a day off, but actually still do the show? And It was like, oh, we'll pretend we're right-wing talk show hosts. And it was true. It was like, I just remember the first time we did that, we were all just like, whoa, this is fucking easy.
Right. Right. You just pick any news story and just get angry about the stupidest shit. And then you don't have to even read it. You just look at the headline too. Even if, and this often happens in Tim Pool's own videos. It's put out all the time on Twitter where Tim Pool will read the headline, start getting angry about something. The video will go on for 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, and then the person who pulls the clip to post it on Twitter says, "Look at paragraph like 6 or 5 in the very same article Tim Pool was getting angry over, and it completely debunks whatever he was getting angry about just from the headline."
Right. Yeah, I once heard there was I remember where I was. I had my back was thrown out, and so I was going to do physical therapy in like 2000, must have been about 2006. And I was listening to Limbaugh, and he was railing on this about he was like, these enviro-fascists, owl huggers, because there was a story in the late 90s, I think, about saving the spotted owl or something like this. This story from Switzerland is just, these environmental sickos. They have put a tin foil on the top of a glacier to pretend, that it's global warming to keep this. And he starts to read into it, and he gets to the line, and environmentalists were very upset that the glacier, the ski resort did this or something. And it was actually the environmentalists who were complaining about the tin foil, and the tin foil was actually put on the mountain or the, Mylar or whatever it was, because it was getting too hot and the glacier was melting too much and they wanted to maintain the skiing. And he sort of like had to, we got to take a break. We'll be right back after this. And I just remember thinking like, holy shit, he doesn't even read into these things. And he's just mad at his producer right now. And this is when I was doing, talk radio. And I was like, I know exactly how this happened. And it's amazing to me. He's just like in autopilot and that's what Tim Pool does. And he has just control over the whole thing. And he doesn't even care because I think his audience doesn't really even pick up on it. And it's made him a very, very wealthy guy. And so, to me, that doesn't speak very well about him.
Right.
But
it is amazing though how we've always discussed this, but I just want to bring it up for have it on air here. It is amazing though that like how big, like there really is no equivalent to what the right is building online in terms of like their shows and the little like media sphere where they're all going on each other's shows. There's nothing on the left that competes. And I don't get what, like literally the Majority Report is probably the biggest, if not one of the biggest, that can actually go up against the right. Like, listen, I know there's other shows out there that are big, but they don't really engage either. It's bizarre. Like, like you go after, and Michael did specific right wing talkers all the time, and not just like in a general sense or when one of their clips went viral in the mainstream. Like the majority report always dug in to make sure that, like, man, if they said something so egregious, it needs to be called out, no matter, even if it's not the big story going around Twitter or Facebook or whatever. Like, what do you think like, how does the left even, like, what can they even do at this point? Like, I look at it, I'm just like, they're building their own little, like, even though they complain they're getting deplatformed from Twitter and Facebook, whatever, but the big shows that continue to gain a foothold. I mean, look at Facebook's most engaged posts. Their biggest
Dan Bongino.
Dan Bongino, Ben Shapiro, Breitbart, Steven Crowder starting to enter that top 10 list. I mean, this is the deplatformed right?
Yeah, I mean, they just have a much more. I mean, first off, their agenda is far more is far less dimensional than shows on the left, right? I mean, it's just like, the majority report in many respects is schizophrenic. Like today, for instance, depending on when you tune into the show, you could either hear a PhD from the Quincy Institute. Some of their funding comes from the Koch brothers, talking about Yemen and the dynamic between Saudi Arabia and Iran and UAE and the United States and the Houthis. Or you could hear a writer who is talking about how the Supreme Court threatens the non-delegation doctrine, which essentially allows, the EPA to do its job, or, how Breyer did a poor job in developing, future toeholds for jurists to overturn what we're going to see over the next 10 or 20 years. Or you could be hearing, me read off an IM about D's nuts on my face, and and us, mocking. I can't remember who we mocked today, but I'm sure it was incredibly sophomoric when we did it on some level, and everything in between. And it's, the right, and to a certain extent, like that is. You can find shows that are in every one of those silos on the left that are talking about, sort of Marxist theory, or they're talking about, completely ignoring electoral politics and their and I'm not saying this in any way disparagingly, I'm saying it encouragingly, looking at, what you can do to build movements, or, people are talking about, I don't know, John Rawls somewhere, or, they're, and then doing every other aspect of it. But on the right, you tune in on any given day, and there's, they're all talking the same thing, and they're all talking about it the same way. And that's it. And and part of it is that in many respects, they're getting their funding, if not from the exact same people, from the same ilk of people. Maybe they got their startup money that way, or maybe they've gotten, they get a decent, I get advertising from Hillsdale College or whatever it is. They've been platformed by these people, and they all fall in line. On the left, for the most part, like the compensation, for some of us who are lucky enough to make a decent living off it. Part of that's the compensation, but the other part of the compensation on the left has always been, how sound do other people think I am? And do people say, say that the argument that I made is good, or academic accolades, or, I got a good review somewhere. On the right, the compensation comes in one form, and that is like, who's making the most money? And that's why, like, guys like Milo Yiannopoulos were on the top of the heap until they weren't.
Right. Now
and it's not like he was doing anything different, right? Like, it's not like people suddenly said, like, you know what? Actually, I've given a second thought to Milo Yiannopoulos and he's full of shit. No, it was just like he wasn't profitable anymore. And so he's gone. And that's the way it works on the right, and because of that, in many respects, they're more effective because. And then there's problems with funding on the left. I mean, we've talked about this in the part, but that's, this has been an ongoing issue, and the right is far less nervous. The money on the right is far less nervous about sort of pushing populism on the right, because that populism never interferes with their project. Right. The populism on the right is much more about nativism and some iteration of racism. And on the left, the populism is economic populism, and that is far more threatening to the money. And so that's why the money does not come. I mean, I can tell you that's like when the Democracy Alliance, I don't know if they still exist, but when they came around Air America, in addition to Air America being woefully mismanaged at various times by a series of jokers, I think there was just a general allergy to the idea of, like, I don't know, radio, like, it's a little bit, who's hearing this, and so I think that is that's always going to be a problem.
Right. Did you ever get a chance to listen to that anarcho-communist podcast, Sea of Thieves?
Was that you?
No, I wish that I watch that clip all the time. It's great. Someone cut.
That's what I'm talking about. Like that, yeah. What was it? What had to go? Like, see if these nuts or something like. I can't remember what it was. But yeah. No, I got nailed so many times. I mean, it happens almost like every day now. Like, and half the time, like Emma like will say to me, like, "Do you really not get what's going on?" I'm like, "Look, I'm sorry. I didn't." She's still sort of amazed at how easily I can get played, or what I don't know references to.
It happens to her on Thursdays, so she could talk big all she wants, but it's happened to her before on Thursdays. She'll read the IMs and maybe not.
Well, maybe we should start clipping those.
Right. Sam, you have to come back on because I wanted to talk about the Dore left. I wanted to talk about your saga with Cernovich. But that'll be a whole nother episode. Each of those topics could be. Sam Seder of the Majority Report, thank you so much for joining me on this 200th episode. I
gotta tell you, I really appreciate you having me on. I have no right to be proud of you. That is reserved for Binder Dad. But I am nevertheless, like, it's impressive what you've done. Your reporting too. The work you did in print was also really impressive. And it makes me feel good that you're, having this success and you're doing the work you're doing. It makes me feel good about myself. So, turning it back to me, but no, I really do appreciate you having me on, and keep up the good work, man.
Thank you, Sam. Hope you come back on soon, and have a great night. And I guess I'll see the rest of the Majority Report crew on Thursday.
Yep. Yeah, of course. Oh, and we should also talk about some other day. I'd like you to come and join us very soon, actually, in Brooklyn. I don't know if Bradley spoke to you, but we'll talk about that later. I don't need to do that right now.
Ooh, okay. All right, got it.
Intrigue.
Oh, take care, Sam. Have a great night. No,
all right, take it easy,
Your
Matt.
cat's walking around in the background. You got a big cat. He's big.
I got 32 pounds of cat in this house.
Jeez.
2 cats.
Oh, wow.
They're just they go back and forth with the kids.
All right. So you got 4 kids now.
Yeah.
Take care, Sam.
See you easy, man. See ya. Thanks.
All right, folks. Don't go anywhere. I'll be taking calls. We have a lot more show for you. I will be talking about, if you enjoy Sam talking about Jimmy Dore and the Doreites like Jackson Hinkle, I have some of that coming up for you right now. I also will be talking about the trucker convoy, the AstroTurfed trucker convoy in going on in Canada right now. But first, let me quickly thank my patrons who joined over the past week. Now, here's the thing. This is the first episode of Doomed since I launched Scam Economy, my new show. And I'm using the same Patreon page, because it's just simpler. Patreon.com/MattBinder. So I don't know who joined because they wanted to continue supporting Doomed. I don't know who joined because they discovered Scam Economy. For those who don't know, Scam Economy is my new show that's critical of the crypto, blockchain, NFT, Web3 space. Scam Economy. But I'm going to thank all the new patrons over the past week. Actually 2 weeks, because this is the last time I had a live episode of Doomed. Right now. So people who have become patrons in recent weeks, let me give you a shout out. Sean Zone, Kyle, Shabugan, PJB, Jaap Van, C. James, Raymond L, Barry B, Christina DC, Kate S, RPM Jr., Evan W, and OBO. Thank you so much for becoming patrons. Patreon.com/MattBinder. You can also subscribe to this YouTube channel at youtube.com/MattBinder. That's free. Twitch.tv/MattBinder. If you want to give a one-time donation, you can leave a super chat right here, right now on the YouTube live stream. I will read the super chats on this show in just a second. You can also, if you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, you can go over to the Twitch channel at twitch.tv/MattBinder, and you can literally become a modern-day Robin Hood. If you are already paying Amazon for an Amazon Prime subscription, you can give any Twitch channel of your choice every month a free paid subscription. It comes with your Amazon Prime subscription. You're basically taking money out of Jeff Bezos' pocket and gifting it to me at no extra cost to you. As Sam Seder would say on the Majority Port, it's a win-win-win. Just go to your Amazon, I think it's amazon.com/gaming to connect your Prime account to twitch.tv. And then you'll see the option to give me a free Twitch Prime subscription on twitch.tv/MattBinder. For Doomed, all the links to all the podcasts, doomedcast.com. For Scam Economy, scameconomy.com. All the links are there. The YouTube channel is the same for both, youtube.com/MattBinder, same with the Twitch. Leave Apple Podcast reviews, leave Spotify reviews for both shows if you can. It's a big support. It actually, Scam Economy peaked. Scam Economy's been in like the top 20 tech charts on Apple Podcasts since it launched. And we were like in the top 10 for that first week and a half. I can't thank you all enough for doing that. What else? Majority Port Thursdays. We're going to go to the second half of the show now. If you're watching on the live stream, stay right there. I'm going to take just a quick seconds break. You'll just see the screen say Doomed. And I'll be back in seconds. I'm just literally logging into the Skype call-in username. And that username, just open up Skype and search Doomed Live. And you'll see it. I think it actually comes up as Doomed Live _1 or something like that. That's what Skype gave me. But just search Doomed Live on Skype. You'll see the username pop up. You call into that number. I take people as they come in. There's no hold. I don't have a system to put you on hold. I just take whoever calls in. I talk with them. And then when we hang up, you got to call right back in. Whoever calls in first, then I take them. I will try to get through to as many people as possible. Again, Skype, open up Skype, search Doomed Live. You'll see it. It's free, by the way, to call via that. You don't have to worry about anything there. So cool. If you're sticking around on the live stream, or if you're a patron who gets this as the membership bonus, stick around. or enjoy the rest. For the freebies listeners and people who are not watching the live stream, I will see you all next time on Doomed. All right, we are back. I am just logging into the phones now on Skype. Feel free to call in right now. The phone lines are open. I saw someone already tried to call in. All right. I know someone's going to call in right now, so I will read some super chats until the first person does. Jafafa with a $10 super chat. Long ago, I sent Jimmy Dore a $5 super chat. I'm ashamed. I hope this makes up for it. Oh, excuse me. Thank you, Jafafa. Listen, we all make mistakes. Let me take the first caller. Hello, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Matt. It's Tony from Texas.
Hey, Tony from Texas. Can I pull your video feed up on the stream?
Sure thing.
Cool. Tony, regular caller. We have a bunch of listeners who don't usually listen into the show. I can tell by how many people are watching because of Sam. So I am going to let everyone know Tony's a regular caller to this show. She made the scam economy intro video, that cool, like 3D when you're surfing down the barf stream. I love it. Thank you so much, Tony. What would you like to talk about today?
I was kind of hoping Sam would stick around for calls so that I could give him a backhanded compliment since I've never actually gotten to talk to him on his show. The one time I got through on a Majority Report call was when you were on.
Ah.
Yeah, no, I kind of wanted to talk about like the people just kind of like y'all were Sam was talking about this like aspirational attitude of, oh, if we just act like COVID's like over, it's over, right? And just kind of this desire for people to just kind of ostrich it and just like bury their heads in the sands over the like reality of the situation, that we still have like thousands of people dying a day and like are well on our way to hitting like the big seven digit death count on that. It's kind of, it's working retail in Texas. Obviously most people aren't wearing masks, but kind of like Say was bringing up with like the kids, I will often see kids, like elementary school age kids, wearing their mask indoors while their parents aren't.
Right.
Like just totally cool with it, not throwing it, just like, oh hey, yeah, no, I got my mask on, I'm inside, like respecting the safety of like the people I'm shopping around and the workers that are serving me. But it's been getting like, I don't know, I maybe saw 4-5 customers over a 6-hour shift that actually wore a mask inside this my last shift, which is, I mean, down. Like I was used to seeing like maybe a quarter of the people coming through the store wearing the masks, but I mean it was like nobody, and it's like, we got free masks right there. You're only in here for maybe like 20-30 minutes. Like it's
Right.
really, it's
Right.
really not a big ask.
And there's no like state mandate where you, of course, right? Yeah.
No, of course not. Of course not. And the company that I work for, has the strongly recommends sign on the front of it, but they're not actually doing anything whatsoever to enforce that on the customers. They at least require it of the employees, I guess, but most everybody I work with is pretty chill about wearing their masks. They kind of get it.
Right. It's such a small, minuscule, inconsequential in the sense of what it actually does to you when you are wearing it, act that we asked people to do. And it seems like so like, would you get angry at someone for like wearing a beanie on their head year round, which is a point I made when Tim Pool was complaining about people wearing masks. It's like maybe he shouldn't be one to complain about unnecessary articles of clothing being worn when they don't need to be, in his opinion. I mean, it's just, it's so ridiculous. It's so bizarre. But I mean, we should come to expect it. I don't know why. I guess it was shocking because people generally seemed in the very early days of the pandemic to be like, let's do this. Let's actually just do this. Let's get it. Let's make sure everyone, is safe and everything. Let's do this. I mean, obviously they were the anti-lockdown people, but in the earliest days of the pandemic, a vast majority was just like, let's do what needs to be done. And that quickly unraveled though, to the point where it's just like, you're gonna whine about wearing a fucking mask, like,
Right.
For God's sakes.
One last little anecdote on that. I had to go in for fingerprinting and background check for a new job, and the place that was doing my like fingerprinting and background check was at the back of this like gun range in the city that I live in, and of course, Texas gun range. I go in there. I am the only person wearing a mask. And I go to the, back of the air drop part of the range, where the fingerprinters are, and this one guy looks, 60s, big beard, kind of Duck Dynasty looking dude, was like, yeah, you don't have to wear that mask in here. We don't enforce that. I said, I'm good. I like to wear my seatbelt when I'm driving too.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
like I'm not gonna like throw any aspersions at you, but I like to use a little bit of common sense in just my daily life to minimize like the risk of injury, not just to myself but to the other people around me.
Right. Well, Tony, as always, thanks for the call. Really appreciate it. And talk to you soon.
Talk to you later. Have a great show.
Thank you. Take care. All right. Got a bunch of people who called in. Call right back in right now, and I will take your call. I'll read some more super chats, and then we'll get to some clips. Let's see. Elka with a $10 super chat. I remember Michael doing an impression of Saul wanting cheese sticks. Wow, so long ago. Oh boy. Yes, jeez. Kowalski with a super chat. Casual Seder is the best Seder. Yeah, I enjoyed our discussion a lot. It was definitely, it was sort of like the discussions we would have off air when it was just like, let me take this next call. Hey, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Olivier, from Montreal.
Oh, hey, what's your name? I'm sorry.
Olivier, Oliver.
Oh, Oliver. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I should have put it 2 and 2 together. You're from
Yeah.
Montreal, and you're okay. But I'll call you Oliver because
All
as
good.
as a regular French Canadian listener of this show, Zoe calls in to correct me whenever I try to like use a common like French word. I always mess them up. So let's just call you Oliver. I'm sorry.
Just turn this on, I suppose. Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Would you mind if I bring you your video?
No
feed?
problem.
Cool. Let's do it. What would you like to talk about today, Oliver?
Well, you were saying that you were going to talk about the Freedom Convoy.
I
Right?
am going to talk a little bit about the Freedom Convoy, but as a Canadian, I think you probably can give me some insight.
I would say, like, I'd like to actually maybe hear your opinion on it beforehand, because there's a lot of misconception about it in the sense where no okay not going where you think it's going in the sense where I would say there's a lot of brain rot that has been in Canada that has kind of surfaced because of recent American politics, I would say. Where it's emboldened some people to have like fringe views
So
that were not exposed there initially.
I guess in Canada they call it, oh boy, I'm gonna really massacre this accent. Let me try. It's called QAnon.
Yeah. I know.
QAnon.
As a French Quebecer, but no, I would say so. It's like the other day, like the police had to go in to confiscate propane tanks from protesters because they were basically building camps. And I was actually in BLM protests in Montreal, where they were, shooting gas canisters, basically chemical weapons at us, and the difference between how they deal with these freedom convoy protesters and anybody that's for, let's just say, social justice is quite apparent.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, let me give you what my understanding of this convoy is, because I'm going to do a clip on it that is going to focus on something that just happened today. I haven't since this happened. I haven't done a doomed episode yet. I needed to just focus on getting the other podcast, the other shows up and running. So I was focusing on I had crypto brain for a few weeks. So this would be my first time talking about the convoy on air. But from my understanding of what I've seen in the news and read about it, when I say see in the news, I mean like the articles I've read. I'm not watching like CNN and getting my information from there, but like what I've read and what I've done and looked at and what I've looked into. This is an astroturfed movement that's funded primarily or has been started at the very least primarily. And when I say funded, it doesn't necessarily mean like big ominous groups. It means like the fundraising has come through via far right-wing figures in the movement over there in Canada. There probably are truckers involved in it, like actual blue-collar working truckers involved, but the vast majority of truckers in Canada are vaccinated, and according to like the official like trucker union in Canada, like we're literally talking about like maybe like 10 or 20,000 people out of a workforce, and that's unvaccinated. I'm not even saying who are part of this movement. 10 to 20,000 who are unvaccinated compared to like a workforce of like close to 200,000. And on top of that, the vast majority of people on the ground there, as part of the trucker convoy freedom movement, aren't even truckers. They're like right-wing believers of various conspiracy theories or whatever.
Absolutely not. Like, well, first of all, like the main indicator would be like if you have the money to stay there for weeks on end, import gas, like natural gas or propane tanks, you're probably not strapped for cash, right?
Right.
The other thing is there's actually truckers that have had a lack of access to vaccines because there's a lot of truckers in Canada that are from Southeast Eastern Asia, and by that fact, they don't necessarily have ready access to healthcare services, and some of them have been stuck behind borders because of that. There's a lot of videos about that. Maybe it's something to look up on. That being said, it's a bunch of privileged folks that are crying about not being, as Hassan would say it, I can't go to Applebee's.
Oh, that's how the anti-lockdown movement was in like April, May, June of 2020 in this country, in the US. It was being pushed by like Fox News and other like right-wing media outlets as like, we're seeing an uprising of working people saying they need to get back to their lives so they can go back to their jobs and work and make a living, and they're running out of. No one on this is what we saw. No one on the ground was actually in that category because a good portion of people were actually making more money than their shitty jobs were paying them due to the stimulus funds and the federal unemployment. And then B, the people who were out there crying and whining were people who were complaining. Like, literally, there's videos of them like, why are you out here? I just want to get a haircut. I want to drink a martini at the bar again. I'm tired of sitting home. It was like the petite bourgeoisie.
Small business tyrants.
Yes, exactly. That is exactly who these movements are full of. And these are not blue-collar workers. These are people who have the means to take, like you said, take the time to go out and do these things. But they're also doing the bidding of the very wealthy millionaire and billionaire right-wing class, who, frankly, don't want to, break their nails or mess with their nice suede shoes and be on the street out there, because they would never do that. That's for, they'll use those small business tyrants to get what they want. The small business tyrants will probably benefit in some way or another, but they're not going to benefit as much as the the right wing people funding the movement.
So this returns also to what I was trying to say initially. Like, we've got a lagging indicator here where, so like the small business tyrant that's against COVID in the US existed, let's just say, a year ago. Still exists, of course, but now it's coming to fruition here, right? There's in any case, I would say it's a little scary to see, like, when we have like this certain identity as like, oh, Canadians are like super nice and whatnot, and but then not have that come to fruition, and yeah.
No, I mean, listen, I think that is I think every country has.
It's a meme.
Right.
Yeah.
There are tropes for every country, just like there's tropes about, gender and race and religion. Every country is a little bit like America in that sense, in terms of its politics and its extremists. I mean, the U.S. is the worst of that, but actually, I think the U.K. might be giving us a little bit of a run for our money, thanks to COVID.
Mr. Boris.
Yes, it seems like it's incredibly bizarre over there. What's going on? But yeah, in terms of outside of COVID, generally, we are America number one in the horrible discourse in the world, thanks to our various different extremist groups and right-wing factions, and our center-right party that is portrayed as not being that we somehow. I mean, there is no real institutional power left here at all.
We've got basically the same thing, though. We've got the Liberal Party here, Trudeau and whatnot. Could I hit you up on one more thing?
Yeah, sure.
Because while you were talking with Sam, well, I started watching MR while you were still on MR.
Oh.
So yeah,
Old school.
I only heard you in the background and whatnot, and I kind of wanted to touch on the Joe Rogan thing.
Sure.
So I've heard many a times the thing. Well, with some friends, some of them are not friends anymore. Let's just say. That oh yeah, he's just fucking around. He's interesting and whatnot. It's just. It gets really, really toxic at some point.
Listen, if he was just fucking around is like having on Milo Yiannopoulos once and literally making a fool out of him because he's ridiculous. He's a joke. If you're a comedian who does not believe in anything he's peddling in terms of ideology, you would even if you're not on the left. Like, even if you don't even want to talk politics, even if you just want to have this show where you have someone to discuss, if you were just fucking around, you wouldn't have had Milo Yiannopoulos on like 3 times to discuss high-level ideas without him walking off that show the first time and your whole audience looking at him like he's a fucking idiot. Like, and that goes to a lot of people he's had on his show. Like, Gavin McInnes. Like, you're going to have, like... Gavin McInnes on your show, the guy literally like showed his butthole on air on one of his streams. You're gonna have that guy on and mock him relentlessly.
Another shitty Canadian export.
Yeah, man, you guys have to. Jordan Peterson, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I would buy that. You know what? I wouldn't even mind if that was his shtick and he had, like, Cenk from the Young Turks on and did the same to him. And, like, he had on, like, whatever. If that was his shtick just to make a mockery and didn't really want to have any sort of political discussion, it was just being a comedian, trying to find the funny in every political ideology. Because, listen, I've seen silly things come from the left. I've mentioned it before that sometimes, everyone does silly shit. And if that's what you want to do and as a comedian mock it, fine. But it's clearly not what he's doing. I mean, he's clearly platforming very specific ideas solely, pretty much. And I mean, whether he believes in them or not, I mean, weird that you would continuously just have those people. Like, listen, also, if he wanted to have Gavin McInnes on 10 times and Milo Yiannopoulos on 10 times and Alex Jones on 20 times, but also wanted the equivalent on, I don't even have to say the left, an equivalent who believes differently, the opposite. Like, it's obviously like, the left, but if you wanted someone who is, not like a socialist I'm talking about, just like, whatever, have someone basically on to balance out the crazy ideas you just put on the other shows to your audience. Even that, I'd be like, a little bit, but okay.
Well,
but he doesn't even do that.
As Sam was saying earlier, like, he had Kyle twice, I believe, and Kyle was saying, have Michael on.
Right.
Also,
what is
power.
I'll be honest, I haven't listened to the Kyle episodes, but from what I've seen on other right-wing talk shows, when they have people on of differing opinions, they usually have them on for specific issues where, like, the the civil libertarian right and the civil libertarianism of the left would overlap. Like how Tucker Carlson will have Glenn Greenwald to talk about in the early days. Now Glenn goes on for anything. But in the early days, he would have Glenn Greenwald on only to talk about something where they would overlap and agree on, the NSA overstepping by, wiretapping Americans. Left and right should and probably could agree that no good. Right then was probably, a little bit more, well, it happened with Obama, so they wouldn't be for it. But,
the libertarian term was also stolen to a certain extent, right. And this was a concerted effort.
Right.
But
I'm going to assume that I'm going to assume, and if I'm wrong here, I'll be happy to admit, when Rogan has someone like Kyle on, he talks about those rare issues where his right-wing mind would overlap with his left-wing mind, and they would only talk about that with Kyle. I know he had Bernie Sanders on, and I know he agreed with some things Bernie said, and I think it is good for Bernie and any leftist to go on that show. He would never have me on just because, I'm even less of someone than Sam and Michael.
No, he would never have you on because you would shred him. That's pretty much what it is.
I think he, I'd work hard over because I wouldn't care about Rogan. I'd work hard on the audience.
Bernie was in a campaign also, right?
Right.
So he can't be too abrasive.
Right. My point here is that, like, listen, like, if Bernie or any left wing goes on that show, that's a positive, because it will simply, even if just a few people leave that show going, that's weird. Like, if Bernie is the ideal leftist, and from what they believe, obviously they don't know that Bernie's not really super left. If Bernie's like the most left wing person, and like what he said doesn't line up with what Barry Weiss or Jordan Peterson's been saying, like something, what? Well, that doesn't make any sense. I thought they were left wing too. Like, even if it breaks that, that's a positive. Like, even if those people aren't walking away with the idea of like, I'm all for Medicare for all, and even if it just needs to break the idea that what they're listening to is a balanced position where they're hearing both sides. And that's what they believe. And that's what I think is actually the worst thing about Rogan's show. It's not even like what he even says technically about like the COVID bullshit. Like, obviously that has its own problems, or the N-word dropping or whatever, or the Planet of the Apes thing, obviously in their own right have their issues.
Yeah, bad.
But
for sure,
the overwhelming problem with Rogan's show, in my opinion, is that he has a mainstream audience who are not in the political bubble that someone like you or I or people who listen to this show are. And they think that they are getting what they need to understand the full discourse. And they leave that show thinking, man, they might not even know it's the right-wing position, but they leave that show going, the right-wing position is the good position. Leftist Jordan Peterson, Tim Pool, Barry Weiss, Dave Rubin also agree that position they don't know is right-wing, but is right-wing, is the good position. Because look, everyone on Rogan's show agrees that he has a swath of characters on from across the ideological spectrum. That to me is the most problematic thing about Rogan's show.
Last point. Reason why I was bringing it up is that the person that says, "Oh, I like Rogan," and is secretly hiding their power level, will inform the person that likes Rogan that's apolitical, right?
Right.
And will, to a certain extent, red pill, not to a full extent, but maybe over time, versus the person that calls out Rogan, where that person that's really apolitical in the middle will be like, why are you being such an asshole? He seems like a nice guy. So it's like asymmetrical warfare to a certain extent, right? You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, I know what you're saying. Yeah, it's. I think we touched on it. Thanks for the call. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. I'm very glad you took my call.
Got a lot of people. I got a few people in the chat mentioning how you are coming in like a hologram or a ghost.
Oh, sorry.
Which I know what you're using. You're using like the AI automated background remover, but for the QAnon trucker convoy people tuning into this, they're gonna think you are like a hologram being sent in by. Have a great night.
See ya, brother.
All right. We got another caller right off. Oh, jumping right in. Hey, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Matt. This is Sam from Minnesota.
Hey, Sam. What would you like to talk about?
Do you know Michael Bublé?
I do. I know of Michael Bublé. I don't personally know him.
Did you know he actually has a twin brother?
He does?
Yeah, Michael Dublé.
That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah, thanks. That's actually all I had to say. Thanks for taking my call.
Perfect. Thank you. That's the perfect call right there.
Cool.
Have a great night. So someone hung up who was trying to call in during that call. Oh, here we go. I got another all for that joke, which I enjoyed quite immensely, actually. Hey, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Minnesota.
You got to
Hey, Sam.
turn down your stream. Skype caller. You got to turn down your stream. I got to hang up on you, call right back in, and I'll take your call. Hey, what's your name? Where are you calling from? Oh, Zoe. Hello?
Hey.
Hey, you're calling in to be angry with how I butchered QAnon.
Yeah, okay, I'm not gonna even touch on that because it hurt my soul.
Oh, I'm sorry, Zoe. What was it to talk about then? The convoy? Something completely different?
I wanted to make a point about the convoy. When I look at it and see all the American flags, MAGA stuff, Confederate flags, it made me realize that in the end, you did actually deserve Jordan Peterson and all these people. For all the shit you bring us, I'm sorry.
Ooh,
you deserve it.
Listen, I can't even argue with that one. I mean, we got the convoy coming in next, I think. I mean, according to what's the chatter going on, like Telegram channels with the U.S., right? They're trying to get a convoy started here, inspired by the your freedom trucker convoy. I mean, I guess we really do deserve it all. I mean, you got that. You also have that very amazing strain of QAnon believers who, oh my God, her name is. I have to do an episode on her actually. I know QAnon Anonymous did an episode on her. There's that Canadian woman who thinks she's like the queen, like actually the queen, and she's got followers who think she's like the queen. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I just learned, but that's.
Let me pull up her name really quick. Give me a second. I wish like Rogan had a Jamie to pull this up, but let me see. Give me a second. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. Romana Didulo. She is a woman who became really big in the QAnon scene in Canada among a certain sect of QAnon believers. And they believe she's actually the queen, like she's actually the queen of Canada. And they believe that when she makes proclamations, they are law, and that's what they follow. It is like QAnon as a whole is a cult, but this is like an old school cult within the QAnon conspiracy cult.
That kind of sounds like the alien thing, the waiting for.
Nasara, right?
Yeah, of having like these cults based around weird government.
For anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, go search the archives of Doomed or on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/MattBinder, for the Waiting for Nasara episode. It is a fantastic, and I'm not saying because it's my show. I mean, the guy I had on made a documentary about this conspiracy theory, something like 15, 16, 17 years ago. And this conspiracy theory from over a decade, almost 2 decades ago, that this guy made the only documentary about it on, ended up being wrapped in modern day QAnon. And QAnon believers believe in this decades-old conspiracy and have wrapped it up into QAnon. And suddenly this documentary he made decades ago is relevant once again. It's just an amazing look at like what some of these people believe.
Yeah, it's still one of my favorite episodes. I really enjoyed the documentary.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So is there anything else you want to talk about, Zoe?
Well, what I will say about this woman is that I recognize her as the Queen of Canada just as much as Elizabeth. So
there you go. Oh, we're still waiting for Queen Elizabeth to transform into her new. What was it? I don't even remember. But she's supposed to like break out of her cocoon and enter her next phase.
That'd be nice
of life. Yes,
it'd
as
be
like a beautiful queen butterfly. I don't know. Have a great night, Zoe. Thank you so much.
Thank you. No problem.
I feel bad for what we've done to Canada now. I guess it's even. I think there was one or two more people who tried calling in. I'll give them a second. Let me see. Daniel from California with a $10 super chat. Matt, you are doing excellent on Twitch. When are you going to teach Sam how to read Twitch chat on MR? We exist. Signed, Nug_Wrangler. I'm actually not doing excellent on Twitch at all. I don't know what you're talking about, but I'll take it. Kowalski says, hit the like button, help the algorithm. Now, Corncob. Thank you, Kowalski. Yes, definitely hit the like button. If you're not a subscriber, and a lot of you definitely are not, because I can see a lot of you aren't usually here, please hit that subscribe button. Subscribe to the show on YouTube. It's free to do, obviously. Oh, let me take this call. Hey, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
How's it going? This is Alex.
Hey, Alex. Where are you from?
I'm from Houston.
Hey, Alex from Houston. What would you like to talk about?
Well, let's see. I actually talked to you on Thursday at when you were on Majority Report.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was the one who called in about the DAOs and all that.
Oh, right.
But I don't want to talk about that today. I actually, since we're on Doomed, this is my first call on Doomed. I think I have a pretty good first call for Doomed. So
let's do it.
Let's stick to the Doomed theme. But first off, when y'all were talking about Rogan and everything, I just wanted to say, just go back. I just, put in things in a conversation here. I mean, Rogan is just like, after Ellen came out, you know how Ellen, her fall from grace,
right,
which is honestly glorious. I mean, Rogan is just like, he's an Ellen for dudes, like bros, or not even bros. How do I put this? Those type of dudes. I don't know. That's just
right. No, listen, I've seen this especially during these past couple of years, where and I've seen a lot of it actually, where people who used to listen to Rogan, who enjoyed his conversations with comedians and with even MMA fighters, they've come and said, like, listen, we listened to him throughout all these years and everything, and yeah, he had these right wingers on, and we still stuck by him then, but he's becoming so down the rabbit hole and obsessed with this whole COVID thing now. And, I'm at least temporarily not listening, at the very least, because it's become too much. Like, he's fallen even in the eyes of his own fans in a lot of aspects, I think. I mean, everyone keeps saying he's the biggest podcast on earth, and he is. But he's definitely lost an audience from a few years ago. That's without a doubt. I mean, there's, I mean, if he had been doing equal numbers at the very least, Spotify would have been like shouting them from the rooftops. But even though he's still their most popular show, they're not like, yelling out, hey, like putting out press releases saying, like, pounding their chest, going like, look at these numbers. They've never released the numbers Rogan does on Spotify. And you don't do that unless they're not. This doesn't mean they're not good. They're obviously very good, but they're just not good compared to what they were. And just like, listen, Howard Stern went to Sirius after being on terrestrial radio, and he lost an audience. It was still successful for Sirius at the time, just like I'm sure Spotify's made money off of Rogan, has been successful in that aspect. But you lose an audience without a doubt doing that. So he's definitely lost an audience. I mean, talking about just his content, I'm talking about just in the move. He's already got, a hardcore base who's not going to leave him, which is fine. And I'm not saying he should be deplatformed or not. I honestly don't care either way. I'm just saying his audience should know what they're listening to, and that they're not getting the viewpoints they think they're getting. Like, if his audience went in and were like, I'm listening to Joe Rogan talk to another right-winger. Okay, that's what Rogan's show wants to be. That's who he wants to be. That's who he wants to talk to. It's his right, his show. That's fine. If Spotify wants to keep him, that's their decision. People want,
and we get to have this conversation.
Yeah,
that's people who they're the fan dudes of the Joe Rogan, the so-called Joe Rogan experience. They seem to really not like this conversation, but they love to be like, well, he's just saying a word and he's getting criticized for that. And it's like, well, and we're just saying words too. So
Right.
we're gonna.
Listen, if someone wants to criticize me, I'm not going to all of a sudden start complaining that I'm being deplatformed or there's being censored. I mean, feel free to criticize me all you like. I've had people report me on Twitter for something that for literally just tweets where there's nothing at all problematic in them. No, like they just don't like what I'm saying. You could do that if you'd like. I mean, that's if cool. Feel free. I'm not gonna whine that I'm being deplatformed or censored because it's just not true. YouTube has demonetized me at times for breaking their policies, not like the serious ones about like misinformation and stuff, but for breaking their policies about like dumb rules about like reposting content you already have up or something like that. I didn't cry about losing a avenue of monetization. I didn't cry about being censored or, you know, it is what it is. I'm on these platforms. I know the rules. And that's how it goes.
And with Rogan, like, and here's the thing, I love when people be like, well, he's, you know, like he gives off this, like, just like Ellen. The reason I think Ellen is the most comparable is because Ellen's whole thing was be nice and be cool. And Rogan's whole thing was like, hey, man, we're just, you know, he has that NPR style, like real Pacific style, you know, flow to his voice and everything. And, you know, it's like, but when Conor McGregor punches an old dude at the bar because he wouldn't drink his whiskey, I know this is ancient history right now.
Right.
But I don't know if you remember that.
I
but
do.
Like, yeah, it's just like, okay, so where is this narrative? What's the narrative now? You know, like, I don't know. It's just, I mean, you look behind the scenes and really there is like it's a toxic thing going on. And, you know, I
love the idea though that they say that like, oh, the left doesn't engage. They don't. The reason the left isn't on Rogan's show as much is because he invites them, but they just won't go on. That's ludicrous. Listen, give me where's the call-in number for Steven Crowder's show? Where's the call-in number for Ben Shapiro's show, Matt Walsh's show?
That'd be great.
Where's the call-in number for Joe Rogan's show? Give me a call-in number. Let's see the calls they take. You could call into this show, open up Skype, type in Doomed Live. If you don't have access to Skype, it's free. I'm working on ways for you to call in with your phone. I don't have it set up now, but I'll get there. But literally anyone could call into my show. I will talk with anyone. There's no screening. You don't get it. Did you have someone pick up the phone before you got patched through to me?
No, it's just me, myself, and I.
Yeah, I mean... That it's just literally I engage with anyone, and the fact of the matter is usually I'm actually a little bit nicer than usual to people who actually engage with me from the other side because I
see that.
I respect the fact that they're engaging.
Doesn't mean you and Michael Tracy. I watched the Michael Tracy thing and I was just like, wow. I mean, it's like a judo. I can understand how you do it because it's like the, you know, there's a method to that madness. And you're very good at it.
Thank you.
I would have, I mean, on Twitter, I've spent a lot of time talking to Michael on Twitter. But anyways, I can't keep my cool like that.
Right. I mean, for me, it's just I look at it as I'm actually engaging with his audience. For every debate I do, that's how I look at it.
Wow.
Like I don't really. I look at it like, how do I look to that audience? Is the audience, that individual, going to respond to me being a dick? Like, are they going to enjoy that? Then I'll go that route. Do I think this audience is going to respond to someone who they think, oh, this guy's being really respectful and that's a good point he's making now? Then I'll act like that. You know, that's how I sort of tackle these debates. Like, I think it's my worst debate. My first with that men's rights activist years and years and years ago when I was at the Majority Report. I debated Paul Elam, who was like one of the big MRA men's rights guys back in the day. And my goal was just to make his men's rights audience. They weren't going to walk away after that debate saying, I love Matt Binder. He's right about everything. I'm a feminist now. I'm going to respect women. Never going to happen. Never. I actually went out of my way to not bring up the word feminism at all.
Yeah.
Or any of like the woke tech like terms that they call it. My
Yeah.
goal in that debate was for them to look at Paul Elam and go, what the fuck? This is the face of our movement?
Exactly.
And on the message boards after that debate, on his own, A Voice for My message boards,
That's funny.
along with like saying like, I hate Matt sucks, they all had to admit, Paul Elam though looked so stupid compared to him though. Matt made Paul look like an idiot. That's our representative. Like that's all I needed.
And
That's all I needed.
it's because of the way it is you just be logical. You just follow the math. Just keep on doing the math, and they can't keep up with their own BS. So like they end up, you just have to wait for them to mess up and just set up and all you got to do is just stick to the logic, the universal logic, step after step, and after that, it just the rest falls as it does. But there's a couple other things I wanted to talk to you about real quick.
Sure.
Is that all right?
Yeah, just make it quick though.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Actually, I'll go with this one. I'll call it another night because two other ones are kind of heavy, or it might take too long. Okay. Last one here. All right. I think I've heard you mention you have a kid and I have a kid too, and I'm looking to the future of my family and also of the future of this country, and I gotta wonder, man, do I have to have a go bag? And I want to ask you, like, just have you ever thought, like, is that in the cards for you? Like, just, go exile?
No. Are you talking about like? Are you going like? I don't think
to
you
another
are.
country.
I don't think you are. But are you thinking the the Tim Pool route, where like there's an oncoming civil war or something like that?
Well, I just think the stability, the city that I live in Houston, and like people shooting each other in cars, like every single day, people are shooting each other. It's like it's ridiculous. But I guess you're right. I kind of am buying into that narrative of like,
I'll be honest. I may be a bit sheltered living in New York City. The conservatives and people who live outside of New York might think like, oh man, New York City dangerous. This is honestly probably like the fucking safest big city in the world, if not the safest.
Yeah, I've heard
city.
good things.
Like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
idea that there's crime running rampant here.
Yeah.
I literally never worry when I walk out the door. I'm it's not like I'm in like some sort of like a hoity-toity area. I'm in Queens, an outer borough. I'm in Flushing, right by a major subway. I live in an area full of working class minorities. And in this area, actually, I live in an area there where people of Asian background are actually the majority.
Oh, okay.
The public, people probably think, oh, public housing, homeless people. I mean, that's obviously, I live all around it, and everything is fine.
I've heard.
I never worry about getting shot.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are guns on the street. There's guns on the street of New York, sure, but in the sense that like people are proudly like just like holding them and have no worry. Like if a gun is used in New York, it's used for a very specific reason, to usually for a very personal matter. I don't have to worry about like someone getting upset and their open carry gun is just sitting there and they could just emotionally go on a rampage. Usually when a gun is used in the city, it's for a very specific planned out reason, and even that is fairly rare.
That's Tom Hartman. Really, you speak to what Tom Hartman. I called Tom Hartman about this, and he said that if the worst case scenario were to play out, it's that the idea is that things would balkanize. So a place like New York or like the blue states, apparently those would be the safest places to be, like a New York or like I can't think of any other blue states. Actually, Houston, where I am, can be pretty blue. But if you go, it's just, you just have to get in where you fit in. And if you can do that, well, then you'll come out of the other side of Civil War 2.0, probably okay. But there's also part of me that's like, no, I just want to, I don't even want to have to second guess my step. Anywhere I go, I mean,
the only time I've ever thought about moving out of New York City is, and this is probably the experience of anyone in my general age group, I'm going to say even younger, anyone 18 to like, I don't know, early Gen Xers maybe, or late stage millennials, you know. Only reason I've ever considered moving out of New York City is because I got 2 kids, and we could use the space. And frankly, in this city, it's expensive. That's a complaint for sure. That's a major complaint, and I'm gonna reckon that anyone who moves out of New York City for a legitimate reason, that's usually the reason. Anyone who moves out of New York City because of the crime or something like that, they're bullshitting you. They have a political agenda. It's just not the case at all.
Yeah, the 70s of New York are those that's in the rearview mirror.
Long gone, long gone. New York's a totally different place. It's so fucking sanitized now.
Yeah.
I mean, I honestly, I've been to other big cities, and I can tell you, like, I mean, I naturally look like someone who looks comfortable in the city, so I think that might be part of it in terms of like me never running into any issues. Like,
yeah, me too.
I've grown up in this. This is where I've grown up my whole life. But like, in terms of like ever wondering like, is this a safe area? Never asked that once in my life living in New York City. Whether I was in Manhattan, Queens, Brooklyn, the Bronx, Staten Island, you know, it's just not a thing. I mean, maybe if you come here and aren't comfortable with it, and you don't know the areas, maybe you could feel that way. Some of the areas certainly look like they could be dangerous, I guess, to you as an outsider. Not you specifically, I mean the general you.
Yeah. No, I would look. I went to New York and I was confused. I was like, you don't need a car. Yeah.
That's one of the good things about New York City too. Like, I've been to other big cities, and the first thing that comes to mind is like, there's literally no city like New York where everything is so close together. I mean, you really can't, like, sure, there's maybe like a strip or like a couple blocks maybe, like like New Orleans. They have Bourbon Street. But then like
Austin.
I haven't been to Austin, so I can't compare it. DC, like, sure, there's like maybe like a few block radius, but then once you get out of there, you gotta get, you know, it's just empty until you get to a new neighborhood where there's like another like little few blocks. Literally everything in New York City is like so walkable. Every neighborhood is interconnected, and there's never like these dead zones, honestly.
Oh man, that's a foreign thing to me. All right, very cool. Well, next time I want to ask you about. I'm a teacher, so I want to. The next topic would take too long. It's about virtual learning, and I have a theory about that.
I would love to. I almost want to talk about it now, but maybe it's best that we save it.
Well, we'll save. I'll call another night.
All right, cool.
What days do you do the show?
I usually do the show on Thursdays, 9 p.m. But I started doing Tuesday streams too at 9 p.m.
Okay.
Although I paused them for those few weeks for Scam Economy, but I'm probably back to doing both those nights.
All right, I'll look out for you both those nights then.
Cool. Definitely follow me on Twitter, because that's where you'll get the information first when I'm streaming.
Got it. I can do that. All right then. Thanks, Matt.
All right. Peace. Have a great night.
See ya.
All right. I'll take 1 or 2 more calls, and then I'll probably have to hold one of the videos for another night. But then I'll do a clip. Let's go to. Hey, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good.
My name's Miles. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great, Miles. Where are you calling from?
I am calling from Chicago.
Oh, actually, you were louder before. Can you get a little?
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm from Chicago.
Miles from Chicago. What would you like to talk about?
Yeah, I was just wanted to talk about maybe a couple things real quick. I noticed that you guys are talking about Joe Rogan.
Sure.
And I think about him sometimes. You've been hearing about him a lot on the news, and I used to listen to him all the time. Like maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago. He's pretty relatively small back then, and I do still enjoy that kind of maybe just curious philosophical bro. Like I don't identify with that persona that he has. But I do see why people are frustrated, and I always have felt kind of annoyed with his perspective on medical things. and how he feels about, so confident about, the physical body. He hears an anecdote, and then in his mind, he's now an expert. That's how I feel he thinks about what's going on. And he's always been like that.
Right.
He'll have on a doctor, and then he'll bring up some stat, and then tie it to something about how awesome he is, essentially. He works out so much, he's in great shape. And I think it's really a kind of, I'm not a psychologist, and I could be wrong, but it just seems like it's a way to compensate for a greater insecurity that he may have. Because he's always, I listen to hours of his podcast, so I just, and I get that sense too when there's dynamics with people. He doesn't like joke about himself. He's just very, I think, insecure, to be honest. And the whole bro thing is a way to kind of compensate for that. And the thing that's crazy now is that because it's now kind of wrapped up with COVID, that complex that he has is now, enacting, and it's causing all this craziness. And it's just like, I wish, it's just insane how it's gone that way. And he had Dr. Michael Osterholm on, who I know Sam Seder had on a lot, right, on the show. And he was one of the first people that really got me to take COVID serious. And it wasn't, people don't really realize, I think it wasn't until he had Elon Musk on who really changed his mind. And I think what Elon Musk did, because he's so awesome and Joe loves Tesla so much, is that he gave him kind of the permission to first be upset that he's not going to the comedy store anymore, because that's where he wanted to go all the time. And that was irritating. And then second, I think, I don't know, it's hard to say, but the knee-jerk reaction to COVID that is crazy, I think, is like, I think Elon Musk's perspective, which I believe is ultimately selfish, gave Joe reason to fight against what he was afraid of. Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
That's just the theory that I have.
Right. Yeah, if he was just like you said earlier, like he just he portrays himself as like a guy who just wants to have like these conversations, but like, there's a point where like you're just having like why are you just conversing with a very narrow specific point of view? Like if you want to have these interesting conversations and broaden your viewpoints, and it just doesn't make any sense in what he does. Do you know what I mean? Like if you want to have like I said earlier, if he wants to have Milo on and Gavin and whatever anti-vaxxers and Barry Weiss, and okay, go ahead, that's cool. That's what you want to do. But but why if you're curious about it, why just that viewpoint? If you're curious about like these viewpoints in general, because there's a point. Like, he's not. Listen, I agree with Sam in the sense that he's not like maniacal about this. Like he's not plotting this like a right winger is, but he's not an idiot either. Like he certainly knows how big his show is, and realizes, or he's. I don't know how he doesn't, that he's only platforming a certain type. Like I don't know if he realizes what that means, but he certainly has to realize that he's only having on right wingers when he talks about politics.
Yeah, and it's become more that way lately too, I think too. He moved to Texas to get away from that, and his liberal friends, that would maybe knock some sense into him about at least this issue, I think, they haven't been around, and he's isolated himself from those people that are kind of in that same sphere that totally disagree. Like he hasn't had on Sam Harris, who I'm not really a fan of, but he is completely against Joe and has actively called him out on his own podcast. And why doesn't he have somebody like that on?
Wait, Joe Rogan hasn't had Sam Harris on his show?
Not, and if I'm not mistaken, I don't think he's had him on since COVID started.
Oh, but he's had him on, right? So he had him on
all the time,
right?
So, yeah, so he's just, I don't know. And I do agree with Joe on certain things. I mean, I don't really fall into the whole like left-right paradigm, and I disagree a lot with certain positions that you may have, I'm sure. But I think it's important to talk about it, and I do appreciate shows like this where you can disagree on stuff and it's cool.
Right. Listen, I don't listen.
Yeah.
That's what I want. I want a conversation with people. I want I just want to make sure, like, as someone who has this, who feels that way, and that's totally cool. I really want to like hone in on my issue with this. Like, if Joe Rogan wants to just have right wingers on his show, that's totally his show. It's cool. If Spotify wants to have Joe Rogan's right wing podcast on their platform and pay him $100 million, that's their prerogative. People can cancel their subscriptions and boycott Spotify over it. That's their prerogative. My main issue with Rogan is that he has, whether he's done this on purpose or not, has successfully sold to his fans who aren't necessarily the most politically astute, because he is a mainstream audience. He does have a mainstream, non-apolitical audience sometimes because of his non-political shows. He doesn't present himself in that way. And so they actually think they're getting this balanced opinion. And so, like, someone like you may realize this, which is good, and you get to hear both viewpoints and agree with all these different ideas and create you have a ideology that's not like entrenched in one or the other side, which is totally fine. But the majority of his audience is taking in right-wing viewpoints and being sold the idea that these are not right-wing viewpoints. These are like just cool ideas, man. And like he's like lying to his audience in that way. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, and I agree. I think that he definitely tries to pretend that he's objective. I mean, everybody says that they're trying to be objective, but I think that he is either deceiving himself or deceiving people willingly. I don't know, but he doesn't seem to. There are certain topics that he will not let it pass without an argument, and if for some reason it's marijuana and COVID.
Right.
If he's challenged on those things, he's going to put his foot down and fight. Otherwise, you could say anything, and he'll just be like, wow, that's fascinating, interesting.
Right.
Could be possible.
Also, it was always weird to me how, like, he'll have on someone on the right for any little, like, infraction. Like, he had, like, Milo on because Milo blew up during that, like, year he came on his show multiple times. Because of, like, Milo purposefully going out and getting himself booked at colleges, knowing he knew they were going to be canceled because of what the uproar he was creating with his, like, white supremacist view push. And so Joe Rogan would have him on and talk about, like, whoa, this is getting crazy, social justice, and whoa, like, such a minute thing. Like, this is what, like, you have an audience of like 11 million people, and you're gonna have someone on to talk about this like minute issue. But like on the other side of things, Sam Seder, who was on the show earlier, literally lost his MSNBC contract for a time, just as a contributor to MSNBC. Because there was a right-wing hit campaign on him to get him canceled due to a joke that they purposely took out of context that he tweeted like 10 years ago. And that seems like it should go like right in line with like, oh, I gotta have this guy on to talk about the cancel culture, but no, he didn't.
Well, that's a good point. I think Sam is a very good debater, so that would be. He hasn't been on Joe Rogan's podcast ever, right?
No. And
he probably wouldn't be down with that, huh?
No, he has, and he said this on. You might have missed the first half of the show when he was on here. Sam knows Rogan from back in the stand-up comedy days, where they're both doing stand-up comedy out of Boston. They're not like good friends or anything, but he knows him. They've been acquaintances, and they've been in the same cruise and played softball together. Right. I think he said back in the day. He, a couple of years back, specifically reached out to Rogan because he was going to be in LA, and Rogan basically went out of his way to not, like, Sam specifically reached out to him to say, hey, I'm going to be in town do you want to set something up for the show? And Rogan specifically went out of his way not to book Sam on the show.
Yeah. So, wow. Yeah. It kind of sounds like the whole what was on H3.
Yeah.
With, Crowder.
Crowder not wanting to
Kinda
talk
that
with
deal.
Sam. Like, listen, if you're someone who just doesn't like Sam, I mean, I guess you have like there's no like you're not forced to invite Sam Seder on your show if you don't want to. Sure. But like if you're a guy who's like inviting like white supremacists and conspiracy theorists on your show because you just like enjoy all the outrage and like attention it brings you, why wouldn't you want that? Like you could just book Sam for that too. Like in terms of like you want like a crazy show where you want someone on who's gonna like really like fight with you or something. If that's what you think Sam's gonna do, that's good.
Yeah.
Entertainment too. Why push the white supremacist viewpoints as your entertainment, but not someone who's going to push back at you a little as your entertainment? Like so bizarre.
Right. And that's one thing that frustrates me with the hypocrisy of the right sometimes now in America is the that perspective that we just want to hear both sides. We don't want cancel culture, but then that's kind of what got me to change some of my perspectives was saying, let me reach out to my friend who I have a lot of friends that are on the left, and I said, give me some podcasts that you think are good, and I watched those, and I'm like, yeah, that guy a doofus like that I've been listening to, or I don't know. I think it's good to expose yourself to different opinions because my personal philosophy is that, to avoid that kind of hypothetical civil war the previous caller called about is talk to people that disagree with you and treat them as though they are an American, which they are, and to not hate them or call them names. And I think that the algorithm does kind of ask us to be hyperbolic and unhelpful. And so people get in their mind the perceived opposition is like the enemy. They will just want to beat them up and argue with them. And so then they meet someone in real life and they're like, hey, they start freaking out and yelling at, so everybody's amped up all the time. And it's like, I get that because we're not trying to convince people sometimes. I feel like we're trying to like win. And it's like, oh, what does that even look like?
Right. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, for sure. I mean, you actually made me think. When I tweeted earlier this week, a couple of days, like maybe it was yesterday even, I don't remember, about my issue with Rogan, which I just told you about the false advertising portrayal about what the show espouses in terms of the political episodes. A Rogan listener reached out to me via DM. Among like all the people who were cursing me out, this guy was very cordial, which is cool. That's fine. I don't even mind people cursing me out. That's fine. If you want to converse with me like that, as long as you're engaging, that's fine. But I'm not going to name who this person is. He's just a nobody random. But he DM'd me saying basically, who the fuck cares if Joe Rogan brings leftists or rightists or fucking anyone? They're just people. The political position of guests is completely irrelevant. And so I replied, Rogan can have on whomever he wants, but why are his fans so afraid of categorizing the show for what it is? And then he asked, what do you mean? And I said, the vast majority of his political content is engaging with right-wingers, which is fine. It's his show. Ben Shapiro also has a program that primarily espouses right-wing ideology, and we all know that show is a right-wing talk show. And so the guy came back to me and said, you have to take into consideration that he has a global audience. These politics are generally localized to the U.S. to nearly decade-long non-American listeners like me. He's just an average Joe talking to people he fancies. Considering most guests that go on Joe Rogan don't mention anything political, and I disagree with that categorization. And so I replied, basically like, Eureka. I mean, this is basically what I do when I debate someone on air. I get them to tell me something, and like they basically, it's like a rope-a-dope almost. I said to him like, of course he has non-political shows. That's why I specifically mentioned the politics episodes. But what you just said is exactly what I take issue with it. You've been listening to Joe Rogan for a decade, and you have no idea you're receiving that right-wing political slant because they pretend there isn't one. And you, as someone who doesn't know the U.S. politics, have no idea, and you're not hearing from the other side either, so you can get that idea. So this guy basically just admitted without even realizing it, and he came out after and said, literally the next message to me was, fair enough, I hear your point. He just basically admitted to me that he's been listening to Joe Rogan for 10 years and had no idea that there was a political slant in the vast majority of guests he listened to. He just thought he was listening to an average Joe just shooting the shit with a bunch of other average Joes.
Right. Yeah, that's great. And I think that the way that conversation ended sounds like a victory in my book. I mean, he on both ends. I mean, he had the integrity to admit when he was wrong, which is something that I think is missing with a lot of people that are super partisan. But one thing too, maybe the last thing I want to bring up is the connection with conspiracies and cults and things like that. I think there's a danger now with what's happening when we don't really like know our own history and we don't talk about it and have a good context, because I think we as just generally people give strength to the crazy conspiracy theories when we don't acknowledge the real ones. You know what I mean? It's like, I mean, there are things, and I know I could be like, where are you going with this?
Right. No, I mean, listen, I know what you're saying, sort of. I mean, there's definitely like, you know, in terms of like, you know, there's a lot of questions around like JFK, and you know, there's I don't know exactly which ones you're talking about, but there's definitely
there's things that we've done as a country that is, you know, factual. That's kind of crazy. You know, I mean, like things that are just fact, like Iran Contra.
Oh yeah, but that's not a conspiracy.
You know, things like that.
Right,
and,
right.
But I mean that. Well, the thing is, like, before that was known and somebody said it, it would have been a conspiracy theory. So, I mean, it's just logical that there are possibly things that are just not right, and so it's almost equally ridiculous to dismiss everything as a conspiracy theory, and by maybe not like knowing at least the bullet points and being able to discard those bullet points, it only emboldens them, because it's like, hey, they're in on it. They know they're not, but they're not aware of this thing. They're not talking about this. But if you if you know and you engage with it and discard it, I think then that strengthens or weakens their point.
Right. I know what you're saying. This is especially a problem in mainstream media, where, you know, maybe you'll see on like, I don't know, CNN or something, like questioning like the government's official position is seen as a conspiratorial based on certain, you know, I can't think of the top of my head a certain issue, you know, the idea that I don't know, what the government told us happened in a drone strike in Yemen may not actually be what happened when the U.S. government drone striked Yemen. I mean, we did see this recently when like we were told that like you know, there was a successful drone strike. This was, I can't remember exactly when it was, and it turned out that they completely fucked it up and accidentally drone striked an entire innocent family. I mean, this probably happened numerous times, and you know, here's the difference. Usually, those legitimate questions of authority that people try to paint as conspiratorial, they come from a place where there's something there. Like usually there's someone who's done their work, and even maybe they can't prove it outright, but they've done work to show that they're getting there. Like there's something there. There's questions. Like like why didn't they answer this? Why didn't they answer that? What's going on here? Why they say this in that way? Why won't they? I mean, why won't they? Why are they using that specific wording? But then also I don't want to conflate it with like, you know, after the 2020 election, Donald Trump and his fans are out there saying the election was fraudulent. I mean, that's a big claim. If you can show us some evidence, I mean, you don't have to outright prove it at this stage, but why do you think that? Show us something that shows us why you think that. And they'll fucking say something like, did you see Trump's rallies? How could he have lost? Like, that's not anything.
Right.
That's not
exactly.
like
That's
that.
why I talked to my family who's Trump support. I have family that are Trump supporters that I love, and we try to avoid politics because their blood pressure gets really high, I guess, and I always try to emphasize that we have to be better as people to think and analyze what we're hearing. I mean, more so now. It's like we can't conflate things, and even as we hear stuff too that's crazy, like Epstein. I mean, that's insane. And so the fact that is real, it's like that gives more plausibility to certain things. And so it's like, I think, as an independent media and as just people that are into this stuff, we should be able to kind of just decide for ourselves and look at things and not fall into any camp like, oh, it's Pizzagate or,
Right.
that's just how I feel about it.
No, I totally
I mean,
get what you're
Dennis
saying.
Hastert was a prolific child molester, and he was the head of the Republican parties.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, I totally get what you're saying. But here's the thing, though. Like, the Epstein story, as crazy as it is, like, it tracks. Do you know what I mean? Like, wow, a very powerful person who had already been sent to prison for that very thing is back out and about, probably doing that very same thing, maybe even probably even at a larger scale, I should say. And he's got the means, he's got money, he's got power. Right. I mean, I get the conflation that people would make, like, oh, if he's doing it, then everyone's got to be doing it. And listen, we and then you got someone like Harvey Weinstein, and like Kevin Spacey.
Exactly.
But I mean,
so are we apologists for powers that we don't? It's like that's. I don't think that's what you guys are. But I think that we need to release some tension by, I think, capitulating certain points and just trying to come together maybe more instead of trying to kill each other. That's just.
But I just wanted to finish my point there. I agree with what you're saying to an extent, but at that point there, and I think that people who believe the stuff I'm about to say need help for the most part. So I agree that we can't, I'm not like out to, but there's also a very big difference though between like those things that can make sense and track. People of power will take advantage and do horrible things, and then jumping to conclusion that there's a mass global conspiracy of baby-eating cannibals who are running a sex trafficking ring out of a pizza place's basement, that the only reason we think that is because we hate Hillary Clinton and this pizza place was mentioned in her emails, and Trump is the hero who, even though he was buddies with Epstein, we're just going to ignore that and pretend he's actually the one guy trying to stop all of the things that are going on. I mean, there's a huge leap between the two. I mean, I can understand how Epstein fucked with people's minds, but the people who made that huge leap, I mean, they need help at the very least, because that's not a normal leap to make, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you? There's some things like Podesta. There's some weird things I saw. Did you read the emails yourself?
I did, and I'm almost afraid to go there because this call's been so good in terms of, I mean, it's
no, I know.
It's a guy who's running a big campaign. He's definitely a well-connected, very rich. I mean, that's probably the thing you'd be most mad about him, that he's very rich and supported and helped a campaign win that had not so great policies. But at the same time, like, I looked at there's nothing there, and to make the worst thing is that him and his brother are so entrenched in the Democratic Party that they've enriched themselves. I've not seen anything that connects to Epstein, if that's what you're getting at, or anything worse than that. The pizza mentions are literally just that, pizza mentions. Is there something specific?
You ever hear a handkerchief on pasta.
What was that?
Yeah, that was a weird thing. That handkerchief on pasta or walnut sauce, or yeah.
I mean, I could assure
Those are
you.
just some.
I could assure you that they never thought that those emails were going to be released, so they had no reason to use coded language in those emails. They were never supposed to be public. Like, if these were like public documents, or like, you know, the official White House documents, and you were arguing that, like, you would at least
Right.
have that line to go by, that these are eventually going to be public. Like, these were private emails. This isn't even like the private
Well,
server controversy. This was a
I don't.
private, a campaign is a private, like, thing. There's no reason for that stuff to ever get public. No reason for them to use code
Well,
in their
you're
emails.
saying that. Well, I don't necessarily think that's a great argument, because, I mean, it would the people that are operating at that level would have some sense that this could get out, because it did get out, and that would be foolish if not, I think. But I'm not saying that I know, but just I think it's funny when things are just dismissed really quickly. When you have some kind of like hyperbolic, crazy thing, it's like the guy walks in with the shotgun. That's the story.
All right, I'm gonna read this. I'm gonna read this email. All right. Hi, John.
Okay.
This is from Podesta.
Okay.
No, it's not from Podesta. This is to Podesta from someone named Susanner. So it's not even from Podesta, but okay. Hi, John. The realtor found a handkerchief. I think it has a map that seems pizza related. Is it yours? They can send it if you want. I know you're busy, so feel free not to respond if it's not yours or you don't want it. I mean, I have, personally, I got years ago a handkerchief from the Warped Tour that I went to. This was like 2003, 2004. They had a pirate theme that year. And the handkerchief has like punk related, like pirate maps type. I'm telling you the truth here. And I would wear that handkerchief in the back pocket of my pants whenever we would play shows in my punk band, and I would use it when my hands would get sweaty to you know, so I could play bass guitar without, you know, slipping off the what I needed to do. If I dropped that handkerchief somewhere, someone could have sent me a very similar email. Like, it's not crazy that there'd be a like a handkerchief that has a print of, like, I don't know, a map of local DC pizza places or something like themed like that. I mean, it seems very literal to me, honestly. I mean,
It could be. I mean, that one I would say that's very dismissible. It's not the strongest one that I recall. There's like the kids waiting for you in the pool part, which was a little odd.
I mean, does he have kids? I mean, I could look up that email too.
Right.
I'm sure he does, or he's an uncle, or
Let me see.
I'm a little bit upset that we went this route, but I want to, you know, you're engaging with me, but so I'm gonna
I think
do this.
that's interesting. Well, that's okay. I mean, I don't think. I think it being upset is that's an interesting reaction. I think.
Because I think the Pizzagate's been I think widely debunked, honestly, at this point. But here's the email. This is to someone at the Washington Post. No, wait, that's not it. That's a different one. I guess I don't have the email. I can't find it, honestly.
That's okay. Yeah. I'm not trying to. I don't know. I'm not saying it's a thing. And I'm not trying to convince anybody. It just seemed to me like I didn't hear anything about a lot of the specifics. And I wish that they had, because I don't want to believe that, and I don't necessarily believe it, but it just wasn't sufficiently debunked for my
right, but
analysis.
Here's the thing, like when you make a claim like that, it's not possible to debunk something that is like if you claim something, I can't debunk your claim by proving you something does not exist or did not happen. You have to prove to me that it happened or it occurred. Like there's no way. Like if you
Right.
say like I don't know. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Like if you claim to me that here's a claim I recently debunked over the past months. Someone was claiming that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez actually owned a restaurant and wasn't actually the blue-collar worker at the restaurant she claimed to be. This was untrue. I can prove to you that it's untrue based on various different documents if I really wanted to, in that sense, because there's actually but I can't find you a document that says, I can prove to you that she was paid as an employee. I can prove to you that she worked somewhere by talking to her coworkers, but I can't prove to you she did not own a restaurant because there's no document that exists that says AOC did not own a restaurant. AOC did not do this. I mean, again, there's plenty of things that her taxes would say she owned one, but again, there's no document that exists that I can show you that says she did not own one because that's not how things work. So I can't prove to you that she did not own one in that way. It's on you. The onus is on you to prove to me that she did. And if you can't do that because it's not in her taxes, it's not in, then the belief based on the proof, the evidence is that she did not own a restaurant and she was telling the truth.
Of course. I think in any kind of conclusion that I try to come to, I do think of it in terms of a hypothetical court. There's the prosecution, there's the defense, and you have one side that presents the evidence and the other side debunks it, and then you have to make a decision as a jury whether you think it's reasonable. So at the time when I was reading about it, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff. That's all I'm saying.
All right. I'm not going to change your mind here.
One guy who came in with the shotgun, and it was like, oh, it's all. It's just.
Because let's put it this way: if the central claim is that this is all about a pizza place where a sex trafficking ring is being run out of the basement, and that central claim is then debunked, then I think the whole thing falls apart. That
sounds like what a defense attorney would go to. The weakest point is that's a straw man. I think that's. It's like there's no basement in the Alamo, there's no basement in right. So, but is it possible that one person could conflate some data? There's no effective prosecution in this trial. There's one person who says, "Oh, it was in the basement."
You think with all this attention this received, that if there was something out there, it wouldn't have gotten out at some point? We literally have all the emails. We had a guy walk in there with a rifle, so we then have police presence on the scene. This was basically, the owner of Comet Pizza is a gay man. This is all this has all the classic tells of a right-wing propaganda piece. A gay guy who's actually into children, and it's just there's nothing here that makes any sense at all. If someone released all.
Did you know that Podesta was friends with Dennis Hastert?
So was a ton of people. He was literally the head of the Republican Party.
He was, right, exactly, and he was very close with them. And he was one of the most prolific child molesters. That is known. That's a fact, and it's not conspiracy. Somebody trying to tell me what is not fact. That's just a big thing to me.
Listen, if you had something to show me that wasn't vague emails that were released that were never supposed to be public, where they had no reason to be vague whatsoever, where they had no reason to use codes or anything like that, if there was something more than that, I would certainly look further into it and humor the idea. But no one it's been 7 years now, and no one has been able to prove anything. But we have found that this whole thing was basically orchestrated.
Sorry.
That's all right. It was basically orchestrated by right-wing fringe personalities who thought that Hillary was going to win, and they had to set up a propaganda hit in order to go after her and the Democratic Party right away. I mean, if this was not that, wouldn't you? And you're even saying yourself that, Dennis Hastert was part of the Republican Party. This goes all through the Republican Party. Why didn't any of these claims include the Republican Party? All of this stuff was specifically set up to go after Democrats. It was made up at its core based on just basic nonsense from emails.
No, I 100% what you're saying there. I agree that it is definitely more connected to that. That's why I think that it was probably Russia related. But just because somebody tells my enemies that I've got crap, like dirty underwear all over my apartment, it doesn't mean that it's not shit everywhere in my apartment, if that makes sense. Sorry. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I mean, it's an analogy that, I don't think it tracks exactly. Like, I appreciate the call. I don't want to. If you want to call in again, I would pick up, and I would definitely have the conversation. Hey. But I just think we should take a break.
I didn't mean for it to get up on the subject. Yeah.
And when I said I was disappointed or whatever I said, I want to make it clear, it was because the call was going in such a productive route. And I think you could even agree that talking about Pizzagate in the year 2022, no matter where you stand on it, which, it seems pretty clear to me, but if it's not clear to you, it seems like an unproductive conversation.
Well, I think you're doing a great job. Keep it up. I like the show, and I think you're going to go far.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. And feel free to call in anytime. I take the calls. Take care.
All right.
Have a great night.
Thank you, Matt. Bye.
I would never not take a call from someone because of the topic. I probably would not go as long on that again. If he wants to talk about something else, that's cool. But he's got to bring me something if he wants to talk about that again. And frankly, that can bring that conversation to another place. Hey, what's your name? Where are you calling from? Hello? Hello? I don't know what happened.
Sorry.
Oh, there
this
you
is
are.
Counting Amberjacks from South Bend, Indiana.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you, Matt?
I'm doing good. What would you talk about?
Well, I wanted to congratulate you on your 200th tonight.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome, sir. But yeah, that's mostly what I wanted to call in about. And the last guy that was on the phone just now. But one thing I think he forgot to think about is before a case gets brought into a courtroom, a prosecutor requires that there's a sufficient amount of evidence,
right,
to try that person,
right.
So that there's no evidence,
right?
Like you would never get to court.
Like you're
not even there yet.
You can literally look at anyone's emails and come up with any sort of code you want. I mean, I'll just pull up. I don't know. Let me pull up a random email I just sent. I don't know. Okay. When I invited Sam on,
and as far as the Joe Rogan stuff goes, man, being a 41-year-old woman from Indiana, he basically tracks with like every jock kind of dude I went to high school with. I think, I think that it's just, they've never really like lived outside of a community that doesn't look like them.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so it's the idea, they don't see what other people see that live outside of these really like sterile white communities, I think that's a lot of it. And because a major portion of his fans are, white men. and probably their girlfriends. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that's why he gets this like regular Joe guy. He's not a regular Joe. He's just not articulate like most of the rest of the elite.
Right.
So he gets away with it.
Right.
But he's not even close.
Right.
And yeah, so Joe Rogan is bonkers and doesn't have, I think he is just really misinformed. And I think a lot of his fans are too.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's basically what it is. Yeah. Thanks for the call. I really appreciate it. A nice palate cleanser.
All right. Congratulations again, Matt. Have a great night.
You have a great night too, and thanks. I really appreciate the support.
Yeah. Bye.
Now, I needed a call like that, honestly. Just a call that basically quick to the point, telling it how it is. Thank you. All right, I'll take one more call, I think. Hey, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, it's Kowalski from
Kowalski.
Nebraska.
Can I bring you up on the feed?
Sure.
All right. What would you like to talk about, Kowalski? Would you like to talk about John Podesta's emails?
That is a blast from the past. Like, I've only been watching your program for like 2 years now, but that's some like classic stuff. But no, the only thing I was going to do was congratulate you on the show. I thought it went fairly well. You had this older gentleman on earlier that was like trying to mimic your hairstyle. He wore glasses, so that works.
Right. That like podcast father, like podcast son, I guess.
Something like that. So, but yeah, that was going to be it. That and I've actually really been enjoying your new show. It actually made me think of another new show that you should probably start in the vein of. So like, just picture it 30 or 40 years from now, right? And have you seen the History Channel series Pawn Stars?
I have, yes.
Okay, it's like that. It'll include yourself, one of your children, and your father. You guys will be running a pawn shop that will be buying NFTs and, determining what they're worth and then reselling them. I think there's, a lot of humor that we can make with this.
I think that's a good one.
What is the objective value? Your assessor will come up with all these NFTs people will bring into the shop.
Right. I would actually like to see, you gave me another idea. I'd like to see someone bring an NFT to the Pawn Star guys and see what they could get for it. I want to see
that would be awesome.
I want to see what the Pawn Star guys value it at. I'm going to assume not very much, but it would be interesting to see. Or maybe they would believe the hype and think it was worth a lot and spend a ridiculous amount of money on it, which would be actually really funny. Even more funny than them actually not being interested, I think.
Oddly enough, they might be one of the few people that might actually know something about it, given what their governor was thinking about doing with all that crypto nonsense. So, anywho, congratulations on 200, and maybe I'll call in on Thursday and not lose the call down at the river.
All right, sounds good.
Have a good one, man.
Take care. Have a good night, Kowalski. Thanks for the kind words. I feel bad. There's been one or two people who've been constantly trying to call in. I'll read super chats. If someone calls in before I'm done with the super chats, I'll take it. And then I want to do at least one clip. Batch Basic with a $20 super chat. Whoa. These people will always hide from directly debating us. That is part of the model. Imagine if Mitch McConnell or Rogan would debate Sam. Mitch McConnell. Oh, that'd be funny. Good luck with the show, Matt. Too much love for the majority port. Thank you so much, Batch Basic. Brad with a super chat. Happy 200th episode from a fellow lefty dad. Thank you. Hey, what's your name? Where are you calling from? Oh, are you cool with me bringing your... Oh, we've called him before. Are you cool with your video being on the feed? Hello?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, so what's your name? Hello? Where are you calling from?
Oh, I'm the guest from last week. You can call me Ola. I live in New York City, just like you.
Oh, cool. All right. So what's there to talk about?
Yeah. Oh, so I wanted to. I seen the title of like the show. I mean, the show after Sam came on, and you say you wanted to do stuff about like independent media. I think I could kind of link it through also talking about Joe
Yeah,
because I
sure.
used to watch a bit of Joe also. Uh, it really has to do with like how just everything that's going around with Joe right now. It's very frustrating because yeah, he used to be like this guy, like hey, a comfortable guy, just like just a regular Joe, basically. Like he just talks about the far stuff that's out there. But then like when you know a bit about information that he's like dabbles in, you start seeing discrepancies and that like he it just doesn't like link up that well. And like just hearing about the what every guest has said tonight, you could just kind of see it. And even with like other media also. And the link I want to present is like when it has to do with independent media, like he has on Kyle Kalinske, then he has on like Pac-Man, and then he remember he had guests from the Rising, uh what is it, Crystal and Sagar.
Right.
Well, remember Crystal and Sagar basically broke off from the Rising. They're doing their own show called Breaking Points, and then
You broke up. Oh, you broke up for a
it might
second.
have disconnected.
You're back. You're
Yeah,
back.
it disconnected. I'm in my basement, so yeah. Hope my connection stays. I'm gonna stay in this position. So they do the show Breaking Points now on YouTube, and like it's supposed to be like this, like okay, like left and right, like you get like a mix of both news, but then like Crystal doesn't really say much like anymore about the left, or like it's mainly about hitting on Democrats, and we know not all Democrats are great. Even I try to tell my parents that, but then like sometimes they just don't listen to me. Uh, but like they just don't do enough. And but then Saga would just like hammer in all these other points, kiss up to like what
You're breaking up again. But listen, I know exactly what you're saying. You're breaking up again, but I know exactly what you're saying.
yeah.
That is, I guess maybe I didn't hit that point exactly when I was talking with Sam earlier, but I think I did, but maybe I didn't. The people on the left, the few that Joe Rogan has had on, minus Bernie Sanders, who, I mean, come on. That was more for Rogan than for, Rogan had on a presidential candidate. Come on, like one of the two biggest. I mean, why is it that the people who he has on, and I'm not going to say I'm going to be careful here because I don't really watch too much of all those people. So I don't know if they also do a lot of things on Republicans or the right and what's going on and hit both parties equally. I do know what you're talking about though, and I agree that's what happens on that show. But the ones he has them on because he knows that they want to shit talk strictly one side, and that's usually what they're pretty much there to do. Like even if on their own program, maybe they go ahead and talk about more than just that. On that program, that's what they're there to do. Like, I mean,
Yeah. And it's basically it's I think it's more of the mixing of how news like comes together because you have like something like breaking points, and then you could go out a little bit further in YouTube, and this is how like news disseminates. I'm the type of person like just to like go all over the place and like see information, but understand like, hey, this could be wrong, this could be right, this needs to be back checked, this needs to be fact checked over here. Now you can't take everybody's like information at face value until like you come to a concession of like facts, in my opinion. So like you have a show like Breaking Points, and then if you ever known, if you know about, I think a lot of like black people might know, but like Alvin and Preach, they're more of like just like two guys from like Canada that will like shoot the shit about like stuff similar to Rogan. They'll talk about like topics that's out there. So back in the day, like just I say like probably like just a year ago, they would talk about shit and it would be like calm, smooth. Maybe it would be funny. Like they look at a couple of Jubilee videos and talk about like some things that happen in like pop culture, especially like when it comes to like certain, like when the George Floyd incident happened, they were quick to go like, nah, this is just wrong, period. And like, but then like you start noticing like it's been a shift in like how like they start talking and the information, and especially broke up.
Yeah, but you're back.
I'm breaking up. I'm in my basement. Hold on. Let me like so I know I had to like
It's all right. Just finish. Go ahead. Continue. No, don't worry about it.
So the information that they spread around is kind of like iffy, and then I noticed, oh, they were like, we basically get our information from like breaking points. So it's like, okay, so you're heading to shows like that to get your information, and it's like, it's very questionable if your information is right, or like it just has some like nefarious means to it also, because sometimes I recently listened to like one of their episodes, and it was about defending Rogan, period. They'd even like, it was like, okay, he said the N word, but like it was in a compilation, and then like I understand, like even I'm a black person, I would literally check my skin right now if it wasn't the shadows, like, oh, never mind. But it's like, yeah, out of context, but out of context, it looks bad. He's saying N word this, N word that, but I understand like he might have been referring to what someone said. It's the same way how like Joe Biden said.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up again. Oh, did I lose you? Wow. All right, I might have to hang up on you. It says it's completely gone now. I was getting the Skype thing in my. That was a great call, by the way. I completely agree with you. I mean, I completely agree with you. Great call. If you want to call back in, I'll see what I can do to take it. If I could, I mean, it just seems like there's a bad connection. Maybe if you call back in, the connection will be better. On Twitch, Pondero Spine says Hillary got to him. Hey, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Matt, it's Omega. How you doing?
Hey, Omega, what's up?
Not much. Pulled ahead me last week, so tons of fun there. Being made aware of my mortality since I'm turning 32 later this year, so good stuff.
There you go. I've been there. I've been there.
Oh my God, it's the stupidest thing sometimes.
Yeah.
Anyways, but like, to start off really quick, since everybody's been talking about Joe Rogan, I'll just make mine quick on that and go to another subject after that. But with Joe Rogan, I do notice like the episodes, like, because I used to listen like years ago. It's how I first discovered Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro. Like, honestly, like when he had those people on, honestly, it was not good. And I felt myself getting annoyed, and I felt like Ben Shapiro sounded too much like a dark, less intelligent man. Dark, if that's a throwback. But my other thing is just like, and then Jordan Peterson had the one point about incel guys not getting the message that like they need to like be better about like approaching women and stuff like that. But outside of that, it's only been like, if there was a good guess, like the only episode of his I downloaded was like the Steven Tyler episode, and then I haven't even dared to watch the episode of him with Undertaker or whatever, because I just don't want to support it, because I'm like, he's gone so far down at this point that he kind of just like, he used to have like some experts, like he used to have this one vegan guy, I can't remember his name, that my wife was like pretty like enjoying some of his videos and stuff like that, because he would cook vegan recipes and stuff, and like stuff about hunting and shit.
Mm-hmm.
And that was okay, but it only really depended if you had like a full-blown actual expert that knew what the fuck they were talking about. So like if you had Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about like a lot of, you know, space stuff or whatever, it was a great show. And then there was nothing wrong with it, because he didn't say something out of pocket like he occasionally does, because that's the problem, because if he goes outside of his zone, he kind of says something out of pocket somewhere along the way, and everybody knows it.
Right.
To change subjects though, the Royal Rumble, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck?
It was bad. It was a bad Rumble for sure. It was a bad Rumble. I mean, Shane got fired over it. Shane McMahon got fired over it. Yeah. Maybe my next show
Yeah,
has to be a wrestling show. Maybe I'll do I'll do Doomed, I'll do the crypto show, and I'll do a wrestling show. Who they gotta just keep racking them up, you know?
I don't want you to stretch yourself too thin on that though, because sometimes like I mean, wrestling could get kind of like a little exhausting too, because it's one of those things that there's always like some bad parts like always hovering around there. You're kind of like, well, because this, whatever. And then like when you see things like, oh, Nick Khan was at the event, it's like, what? So he looks like one of those managers you see at a job that constantly mean mugs everybody to kind of like scare them. It's almost like, who are you trying to scare? I was like, I know you have a position, but you're trying too hard to be scary.
Right.
It's not working.
Yeah.
For me. Maybe a person should be scared of him. But other thing is like I'm sick and tired of like with the female wrestlers, they're doing the same thing that they did with the male wrestlers. Like, oh, we fired all these people, and then we don't build anybody else, and then we're just gonna bring back legends.
WWE has a real problem right now with building future stars. They have no bench. They're basically coasting on bringing in legends, and then they're coasting on part-timers like Brock Lesnar and Goldberg, and then they're coasting on the few stars they have built, like Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, who haven't transcended outside of wrestling yet, which usually is a major factor.
Roman slightly did for a bit he would have little
Very.
blips where people kind of be like, oh, look at this guy. Oh my God.
Very
Because they
small,
would be
though.
like, hey, it's like Jason Momoa and The Rock had a baby. It's awesome
No,
to a lot of people.
nowhere near like even like a Cena or a Jericho or obviously The Rock, Stone Cold. Like they have a real empty space in their organization right now. And the Rumble really laid bare, because I can't remember the last time there was a Royal Rumble where there were multiple people in the ring who the crowd didn't seem to even know about. Like there were spots where like there were just so many nobodies in the ring.
Yeah, and like honestly, I didn't mind that there were like fresher faces because I'm all for that shit. Because there's always gonna be the handful of people like, oh, 2007 had Kenny Dykstra, who's gonna freaking remember him from that,
Right, but
after
if
that year and stuff like that.
There was no one who proved anything. You know what I mean? Like, usually when they throw a couple
Yeah.
unknowns in there, they have a spot where it's like, okay, we want to introduce them to the crowd via the Rumble. But that wasn't even it. It was just, we need to fill these spots, throw these guys out there. We're not gonna have them do anything impressive or show off. We just literally need bodies for the people we want to push to throw out of the ring.
Yeah, and the other thing is like we gotta always remember that like the reason why some of these guys, the era that most of these guys are pulled from, most of the people that they pull into WrestleMania, number one, they're the only ones kind of left that can wrestle without them feeling like they're gonna like hurt them permanently in a bad way. And then you got the fact that most of them came from an era where they didn't have a pool of people to pull from because they were all elsewhere and they were in their competition. So it's kind of like, okay, you just can't keep doing this because these guys are going to run thin. And also the fact is people are getting tired of it. Like I'm surprised people still get even remotely hyped for Lesnar. I stopped getting hyped for Brock Lesnar. Like after the first time he held the title hostage for ages, like in 2015, and then Seth had the briefcase, and people were just like, what the fuck's going on? They're just wrestling for nothing, basically. And everything took a hit.
I liked undefeated monster final boss Brock Lesnar, and I was a big fan. This face turn and how much he's lost, I think ruins him a lot. I thought it was cool.
I don't mind that he's a little goofy and stuff like that. Like he could have some funny moments and stuff.
Right, but it's got to be
even
like
Paul Heyman had the funny moments and stuff. But
it's got to be like, he's such a fucking monster and badass that he's doing these funny moments and because he doesn't even care. Not like excuse me, jeez, I ran out of my drink. But that's not what this. I just think they've ruined him a bit. Definitely call in though another day for more of a wrestling talk. We're at like 3 hours now, so I'm already.
Yeah, I know we're running late, so like I'll just like jump off of there. But good talking, and the show earlier with Sam just made me laugh. He's got a chunkers of a cat. Just saying.
That's a big cat, right?
I do
and
too.
You got two of them
I do too.
apparently. Thanks for the call. Always appreciate it.
All right, take care, man.
Bye. All right, guys and gals. That's the show. Well, that's the calls. Let me get to. I promised clips. I can't get to them all, but let me do a clip or two. I'm signing out of the Skype. Thank you, I'm sorry, everyone's calling right now. I gotta sign out of the Skype. Call in the next show. I promise I'll pick up. Okay, let me read some super chats to get that. Get all the super chats in, and then we'll do a clip or two. Brad with a super chat. Happy 200th. Oh, read this one. The lefty dad. Thank you. Michael DeFreitas with a super chat. Can we agree and just call them doorknobs? Great conversation with Sam Matt. I'm sharing it all over. Thank you, Michael. Sergio Cabrera with a super chat. $10 super chat. Oh no. I just got the hiccups for some reason. I'm proud of you too, Matt. Thanks for the good times and community you helped me feel part of. Means a lot to me, and I'm sure others too. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. My dad with a super chat. My dad with a $10 super chat. You could just give me that $10 when I saw you, Pops, and then didn't have to give YouTube their cut. No, but I know you want me to read this. I get it. Great discussion with laid back, no collar Sam. Great 200th show. Thank you. Midnight Pizza Man with a $6.69 super chat. Nice. Congrats on 200 episodes. Who do you think will open the Forbidden Door tomorrow? D's nuts. Talking about AEW. They've been teasing a wrestler coming from another organization debuting tomorrow. I think it might be Ali because he never got officially released and he wants out of WWE. And what a fucking way to blow up your contract than to appear on AEW without actually getting released from WWE. What are they going to do about it? You're an independent contractor. Because he was Tony Khan, the owner of AEW, is really teasing that this one was a big one. Like this person's going to slam the door behind him. I think that might be it. Maybe. I don't know. Penelope with a super chat. Congrats on 200 episodes. Haven't been here for all, but remember the days when you could read all of our names on every show. Yes, I used to be able to read like almost every chat. I used to be able to read all. Yeah, I used to be able to take every call. Barbara Rice with a super chat. No, just throwing me some super chat money, not even a comment. Just wanted to thank you, Barbara. Abby with a super chat. Unrelated topic. Pamela Moses of BLM was sentenced to 6 years and 1 day in prison for trying to register to vote. I saw that. All right. Horrible. Horrible. I mean, she paid her dues. She did her time. She should be able to vote, period. But then 6 years for trying to register to vote. Unbelievable. Renee with the super chat. Joe Rogan is fascist. Check out what he says about the Kali Yuga, and what he says about the Chinese. The guy is Miguel Serrano. Stop listening to Strasserites and fifth columnists. Tovarek. Michael DeFreitas with another super chat. Another $10 super chat. Big platform right-wingers, I think, are largely afraid of moments like, oh no, Sam Seder, what a fucking nightmare. Or Zizek versus JBP with Wikipedia. Right, that's a good point, and I think that's part of it for sure. We had some super stickers, too. Elite C with a $10 super sticker. Thank you. And Teresa Luke with a $20 super sticker. Whoa, thank you, Teresa. Really appreciate all the support. Really. Thank you so much, everyone. Between Doomed hitting 200 episodes and Scam Economy doing really good. Oh, I'm going to break this news to you guys. To give you an idea of how big Scam Economy has gotten in such a short period of time. I recorded an upcoming podcast episode with Busy Phillips. If you're not familiar with her, you probably are, but if you're not familiar with her, she is an actress who has been on Freaks and Geeks, Dawson's Creek, ER. She's currently on a show called Girls 5 Eva. I think it's on, it's on Peacock. She had her own talk show for a bit. She has her own podcast now. And just so I could tell you guys where to look for it. It's not up yet, but it's called Busy Phillips is Doing Her Best. And I did like an hour long, it was a little bit over actually. I don't know what it'll be when they edit it down, but I did like an hour long episode with her on her podcast, all about crypto and NFTs, because she was extremely interested in NFTs not because she was pro it actually. She's not one of those celebrities. She saw the Jimmy Fallons and the Paris Hiltons and the Reese Witherspoons all pumping this shit. And her and her co-host somehow came across Scam Economy and my tweets about it. And they reached out 2 weeks into the show launching. And I literally did like an hour and a half with them or something like that. I think it's coming out this week. I will let you all know as soon as it's up. But yeah. I'm like in shock, honestly, that it's already, again, 200 episodes of Doomed, 2 episodes of Scam Economy. There's a big difference in the in how it's. I think it's one of two things. Obviously, via Doomed and other things I've been doing, I have a much bigger platform now than I did when Doomed started. Number one. 2. Doomed is a political show, which also affects it maybe a bit in terms of the reach. I said one of two things. Actually, let me put a third in. 3, even though this area is my niche and I've built a brand on it, there are other, really good people who have built their beat on covering the right. They've been on this show. And so it's not unique in that way. Even if I might cover things that other people don't right away, like first to Gamergate, first to one of the earliest to QAnon. It's still other people get on it really quick. Crypto is like, I think a lot of people are interested in it. Well, more outside of the political space, obviously. And then on top of that, you have a complete opening in the space. Again, look who I had on the show. First episode, David Gerard fucking kills it. This is a guy who's been talking about crypto for a long time, and he is one of the premier crypto critics. And I don't think enough people even know about him. I think more people should be following him. When I even came up with the idea of Scam Economy, I wanted him on Doomed, honestly. And then I was like, I need to do a show just dedicated to this based on all the stuff going on and all the calls I was getting about crypto. And when I thought of that idea, I was like, you know what? No, I don't want David Gerard just on Doomed. He's got to be the first episode on my show. And there's a number of really good crypto critics out there who are literally just tweeting and doing their own blogs on Medium or whatever. They're not hired by any outlet with backing that can get their stuff out there. There's no podcast wise. I was looking and it's empty. And on YouTube, you'll get people critiquing it and stuff, but CoffeeZilla is great at critiquing it. But I think, again, he's someone who's loves covering the scams and thinks that's all bullshit. But I think he's actually a little bit bullish on the space in a broader sense, which is cool. I want to have those people on. I think CoffeeZilla does great work. I think that's also, there's actually a number of people who talk about the scams, but I like crypto. I think it needs to be looked at broader in a sense where it's all a scam, and that's where this came from, and I think that's what connected to people. All right, let's do these clips. All right, what clip am I going to do first? All right, let's do this. Again, youtube.com/MattBinder. If you're here and you're not subscribed already, please subscribe. Patreon.com/MattBinder. If you're watching on the live stream and aren't a patron, please think about becoming a patron if you can. I'd appreciate the support, but if you financially can't do it, please take care of yourself, your family, and if you ever have extra money, then feel free then. All right, let's do this clip. Let's go to this picture. Oh, do I want to do Dore? Yeah, let's do Dore, because the convoy thing, I know I mentioned it, but I don't know. It's gonna be a longer thing. Let's do Dore. All right. So Jimmy Dore is always out there talking about. I mean, he's really actually. So Jimmy Dore has really sort of changed and shifted, as I've talked about on this show, in recent weeks and months. He's gone from attacking Democrats who support Medicare for all for not single-handedly passing Medicare for all policy to attacking progressives who are running for Congress who full-throatedly support Medicare for all, but they didn't show up for some random Medicare for all march weeks before their primary in a city where their primary isn't even occurring, to Jimmy Dore today, where he's just attacking Democrats for COVID policies and mandates and general health, welfare, and well-being policies. He is now on a new. It seems like he's always been like, don't vote for the Democratic Party, don't support the two parties, don't support. We got to go third party, go Green Party. I mean, whatever you think about that. I'm a strategic voter when it comes to elections, but whatever you think about that, that's cool. I'm also not someone who shits on a third party voter or says like, oh, your vote is no, it's fine. I mean, whatever. It is what it is. New step. Let's listen to who he's advocating for people to vote for.
Yo, Jimmy, Steph, following up about donating to Nina, I agree 100%, but it still breaks my heart. Love Nina. Have you seen the Marianne Williamson and Andrew Yang talk? Future party, exclamation mark, silver crown. Back to Jimmy.
Here we go. So at this show, our policy is you have to stop donating and voting for Democrats.
Listen, I mean, I disagree. But, I can see someone not voting at all or voting Green Party. You could have an argument and we could have a debate. And I think both will have a position that makes sense in some ways and a position that doesn't make sense in other ways. That doesn't best get to what you want, or does if you agree otherwise. But let's see what he continues with.
You have to stop donating to them and stop voting for them.
So I'm gonna assume he's gonna say vote Green Party, right? Vote for a party that espouses or claims they believe in leftist ideals and sort of Medicare for all. A party that reached out to Bernie Sanders previously, even though Bernie turned them down. They're still within the political spectrum of the left, and I think that would make sense from Dore's perspective if he said that. Does he say that though?
The duopoly.
Yeah, I mean that goes without saying to the Republican Party too. And you have to vote third party. If you vote Libertarian or whatever, you got to vote for a third party.
Oh, vote Libertarian or whatever. I mean, but you only named one party there, Libertarian, right? You want people to vote for the right-wing capitalist party that isn't the Republican Party? I mean, they're both the same thing. Libertarians might be less neoconservative, and they might not espouse the exact same views, but they're in that same general category, and in some aspects even further than the Republican Party, further to the right than the Republican Party. Are you coming out against seatbelts, Jimmy Dore? I mean, your COVID rants tell me that might be the case, actually. But let's continue. Is there anything else he says here?
I'm voting for the People's Party, and hopefully they can get ballot access. You know that.
Oh, okay, the People's Party, that weird like red-brown alliance party, the one who thinks that we should literally. What was their whole thing too? That we should they shouldn't espouse their leftist ideals because they want to reach out to far right wing populists and fascists, basically, and bring them into the fold. Oh, pretty cool.
The rules are set up to keep third parties off the ballot. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully I'll have a third party to vote for. If I can't vote for the People's Party, I'll vote for another third party like I always do now.
Who?
So
you would say Green Party?
Because things will never change until, at least for one election cycle, you have to.
Things will never change just by voting for a random third party either. I mean, I would love for a third party to actually gain a foothold in our electoral process. And I agree that there are various barriers specifically put out there to stop third parties, and we should do whatever we can to break those barriers down. But you're not going to get any change right now voting third party. I don't know what you think you're doing. I mean, again, if you vote for third party for your own moral reasons, that's another conversation. But if you think you're actually doing something by voting third party, people have been voting third party for decades. I mean, nothing. They haven't done it. I mean, a fucking blip. Democratic Party or Republican Party haven't even felt a flick, let alone a punch in the gut or anything like that.
Stop donating and stop voting for Democrats, at least for one election cycle. This would be a good one to do it.
Oh yeah, this would be the one, right? The one where the Republicans are gonna. That'll show them. I mean, but again, if you're anti-COVID vaccines and mandates like Dore, sure you want the Republicans to win this electoral season, of course. But hand it to Dore. I'll hand this to him. He didn't say vote Republican outright. He said just hand it to Republicans by voting for libertarians. I mean, if he just said vote third party and didn't add that ending thing, I wouldn't even said that. I would have given him the benefit of the doubt. But he made it quite clear what his reasoning was. He wanted to stick it to Democrats this election season, this midterms. So he's voting for the third party. Again, if he was trying to stick it to both parties, he wouldn't have added that little part in the end there, right? He's purposely going after just one party. Also happens to be the one party that has some members that support Medicare for all, which he claims to care about. But, stick it to them. But he's actually not the worst here. There's a little Dore right. Most of you probably know him best as the guy who spread the wild conspiracy theory that I quickly debunked about AOC owning a restaurant and not actually being the blue-collar worker at a restaurant she said and claimed to be, which, by the way, yes, she was, and she did not own a restaurant. Jackson Hinkle, who also had a claim to fame by recently debating Sam Seder and of sock puppet accounts on Twitter, all of a sudden started copying and pasting the same victory message. And honestly, I thought Jackson Hinkle, in terms of like substance, I didn't think anything was there, but in terms of like a debate performance, I think he handled himself well in terms of like how he portrayed himself and made himself look. So, I mean, it's bizarre. You'd have to come away with that and think you needed to like try to control the narrative. I mean, Sam Seder obviously had the better substance, but Jackson Hinkle did a good job of making himself seem okay in terms of his performance and presentation. But we all really know who he is and what he espouses because he does it on a stream. Like he'll claim to you that he's a Medicare for all, left-wing patriot. That's his thing he's going for, which is a weird thing to use the patriotic language that the right wing has so completely taken over. But I don't know. Maybe he's trying to reclaim it. I don't know. But someone who really cares about Medicare for all and goes after AOC and the squad for not fighting for Medicare for all the time. I mean, you must think they're hardcore leftists. They gotta be voting Green Party at the very least if they're not voting for progressives who primary those Democrats. But here's a clip of who actually Jackson Hinkle votes for, courtesy of Jackson Hinkle himself.
I voted for Republicans before, and third parties, like you said, Democrats, and I mean, this is an election where if there was ever a time I voted for more Republicans than ever before, it probably would be in this election. But yeah, I don't know. It's
ooh, I see. Okay. I mean, there's no better way to get Medicare for all and all the other leftist policies you want than voting for the Republican Party. You know, the same party who, when in power, just a few years ago, installed a far-right Supreme Court that basically will, for the next, I don't even know how many generations, will make sure that none of your leftist policy that even passes the House or the Senate, if they even did that, would become law because the Supreme Court, that right-wing Supreme Court, will knock that shit down. But yeah, you're the true leftist. You're the real. You know, AOC is a fraud, not me, the fucking idiot voting for Republicans. Unbelievable. Listen, you want to claim that you're not voting in this election? Again, we could disagree on strategics, on strategy. Fine. You want to claim you're voting for a third party, Green Party, whatever. Fine. But that's not what this is. This is you directly. This isn't even that bullshit that I don't even always agree with, where a vote for a third party is a vote for Republicans. No. You are literally voting for Republicans. To stick it to the Dems? I mean, if the whole argument too is that the two parties are one and the same and they don't need, and it doesn't matter who gets into power, then why would the fucking Democrats care? Unbelievable. 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 And the person he's talking to, I just recently had a thing with her on Twitter. What's her name? I don't even remember. What's her name? Kim Iverson or something like that? Yeah, here we go. I'm going to screenshot what she said on Twitter and pull it up on the feed here. It's hilarious. Freaking hilarious. This was her tweet. Oh, whoops, I have the whole thing up here. 1 second. Where is it? Oh, here we go. What did I do with it? 1 second. All right, here we go. So Kim Iverson with a hashtag Freedom Convoy 2022. Oh, yeah, okay. What's she doing on Jackson Hinkle's show? Are they having a little discussion on different differences in having a debate? Discussion on differences of opinion? Or is it, Jackson Hinkle just shooting the shit with a fellow right-winger? Kim Iverson says, there's an easy answer why Joe Rogan hosts more right-wingers than left. Many on the left won't legitimize anyone they don't agree with and simply aren't as open-minded to interesting and challenging discussions. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you kidding me? Give me a break. Give me a break. Ridiculous. We know that's not true. We know that's not true. And we just know that's not true even. I mean, unbelievable. All right, folks. We went long. I'm going to call it a night. I will do a stream and touch upon the convoy people next time, I promise. That way I can spend a little more time on them. I can't thank you all enough for the support over these past 4 years. 200 episodes. Oh, we got another super chat here. Bobby Squinch with a $10 super chat. Congratulations on 200. I hated you when you were at MR, but I am now a fan. Keep up the great work. Ah, man, I just saw that message. Why did you hate me when I was at MR? Which is totally fine. Totally fine. I mean, there's people, who hate me, and that's cool. Everyone has their own opinion. Everyone's welcome to it. But I'm actually interested in knowing why you hated me. I would love to know. Oh, super sticker from Kowalski. Thank you so much. Again, I can't thank you all enough for the support over these past 4 years, 200 episodes, and the new podcast, Scam Economy. Again, doomedcast.com, scameconomy.com, youtube.com/MattBinder, twitch.tv/MattBinder. I can't remember what else. Patreon.com/MattBinder. Did I say that? It means a lot. It means a lot. And with that, now the whole chat is erupted in like, what's wrong? Well, how could someone not like me? Oh, Bobby says you have grown as a communicator. Right. Well, people have to understand I was really young on. I was, 11 years ago is when I started there. So I was 23, 24. I was just a basic bitch progressive. Like I was just like gay marriage should be legal. Obviously, I was a little bit more engaged than most, I would say, because I came from a political punk rock background. But I was not that aware of at least the media space of it all. A little bit, but not as much as I am now by far. And certainly I've grown a lot. Thank you, though. If you go back to some of the earlier episodes, there was a few times where, very few. I'm thinking of one specifically when there was those 2011 riots, I think, in the UK. I didn't have the most leftist opinion on that one. And going back, I definitely would not have had that same opinion on that. And Sam and I debated a little bit on it, actually, on the show in 2011. All right. Hitosh, what was I going to say? One more super chat got in at the last minute. Let me shout him out. Oh, and I thank you to the people on Twitch who became Prime subscribers. Antisocial Communist, Vazati, Giant Robot Love Dance, Fruity Dinosaur. Thank you so much for subscribing on Twitch, twitch.tv/MattBinder. WD Dilly says with a super chat, hey, Matt, you just popped up in my algorithm. Good to see you. Keep fighting the good fight, my friend. All right, everyone. Have a great night. Thank you so much for 200 episodes. Here's to 200 more. And see you all next time on Doomed.